No.
Buongiorno. Hello, everyone. This is us being late. Cool. Yes, what I was literally going to say from the last one, I was going to bring it up actually. There's a woman in the, actually, I will bring it up. There's a woman in the chat. She bugged me. Sheila, I think her name was. So, because we were saying about and Arin and all that.
Yeah.
And yeah, she went off on one. And maybe I got it wrong. I don't know, but I'll bring it up. Let me bring this one up actually to show you before we bring up your thing. Because I hate it when people reply like that because I'm like, I always get like, oh, am I doing saying the wrong thing or whatever.
See if we can decode it.
Yeah, because I might have missed something. Can you see that? Or does it need to be zoomed in a bit?
I think we need to zoom in a bit. Yeah, I can read that now. Sheila in the...
Oh, hello. Well, that was me. I pressed something then because I hit my pad. Oh, yes. Get a free advert.
Wow.
We don't want the advert. Got any excuse to... Right.
Uh-huh. I see it.
But nothing to see it, just a group of pseudo-intellectuals got angry that a woman said a few times. So I just put, like, it's a review, hence, like, we analyse what is said and how it's said. Just because you've chosen to be offended doesn't make our analysis wrong or bad. It makes you a snowflake. I was in one of those moods where, like, it annoys me. But
also,
she said... Gone. Sorry.
It's also worth pointing out that the inaccuracy in her statement of pseudo-intellectual, because I am a professional intellectual, so I'm not a pseudo-intellectual.
Oh, I'm that then. Cool. I like to.
I'm not casting any aspersion, but she's wrong to say that. Calling me a pseudo-intellectual, that's very insulting, considering that I am an intellectual.
Yeah. Well done, Sheila in the bush. Go back in the bush.
Yeah, go and play with your bush.
Yeah, she said that instead of reviewing the substance of her argument, you guys got mad that she said a few times. It's exactly what I said it was, and then I put no because saying etc. means something regardless with what the speaker is saying and thinking. Is not natural language; it's a filler, like we said. You obviously don't understand what analysis means. Body language and spoken language means something, hence what we're doing. And I put also as a footnote, we did not get mad. And she went, LOL, is unnatural language. Everyone laughing, whatever. When you say you're invoking an unnatural word. It comes from beyond the grave. I know, because I'm a super debater and I win all my debates with fellow bros online against all the lefty vegan feminists. That got my goat up, so I responded.
Well, I would have said in response to that, before we look at the response here, I would say that again she's made a category error here, because she's saying that is an unnatural word. Isn't really a word at all, it's a sound.
Yeah, basically. I said, does not belong in a sentence. Simple. Your debate skills, and then laughies, yet you don't understand a review video about a debate. Wow, you are so good and so intelligent. Win my ass. Your comments here show you just pick and you even get that wrong and argue over nothing and seems to hate being wrong, yet you are wrong. Please show me where belongs in a proper sentence. And went, part 2 is Sunday, 1 p.m. Join the live chat and say what you're saying here, and we will read it out, myself and my guest, you, Jake. The reason I put guest, I'm not being rude. I'm assuming you don't want your name plastered here, there, and everywhere. So I've done it more out of a respect thing than, being rude. Me, guest, you know my name, you bar steward.
I do.
I said we discuss it with you, as you're such a good debater and apparently win all the time. But it just bugged me, the whole concept, over because we said about her saying, like, yeah, we point it out because if it shows a weakness or something, we're going to comment, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think it's a total fallacy to say that all we talked about was her using filler like, That was a very, very minor, if anything, trivial aside that was discussed for seconds, if anything, as far as I can recall.
Yep. Yep. So it seems a bit weird that apparently this Sheila has never lost a debate in her life, apparently. Yet she sort of picks on us saying and then saying like is unnatural language. Everyone laugh. Like, but it is unnatural. It's not normal. You don't say and okay and oh, welcome to your job interview. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
The whole argument to me was flopped.
And one wouldn't use it, for example, in a piece of formal written writing because it would be inappropriate.
Yeah. You don't expect your prime minister to come out with a speech or Donald Trump and then start and ahhing all the time. You know what I mean? So to me, it seemed the whole argument seemed like, I'll go back to what I said, saying like, makes you a snowflake for just being all, they're saying that, or I choose to be offended by this and I'm going to pick on it because I'm apparently a non-losing debater with my fellow bros online. Do you know what I mean?
There's a couple of things here I think that are worth bringing in. Firstly, the reviewer here obviously didn't pay particular attention to what we were talking about because it was quite clear that we only were discussing the introduction to the argument. So we didn't discuss her argument because we didn't get around to what her argument actually was. That's something that can be done today. That's the point of having part 2. Secondly, there's a huge mistake in the assumption that is being made here in that one either wins or loses a debate. I do not see discussions as competition. I think that they are an opportunity for learning and that you can have your opinion changed through having a conversation, for example. But I wouldn't necessarily see as it's not always a binary of you're right and I'm wrong. There's much more nuance to a conversation than just that. And I think anyone who does see it in that way is approaching conversations or debates in completely the wrong way.
Yep. I had a complaint about the 1 minute countdown. I was like, well, Apostate Prophet and Dave would have always done a 1 minute countdown, as and when, whatever. And then what was the other one? It was a 1 minute countdown. Oh, and someone skipped about half an hour into the video and the video still hadn't started.
Yeah, that's
true. Because we're going I said, yeah, but we're going through all the chat and we're having a chit chat and whatever. So it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, we've got to make this alive. So it needs to be organic. So like the power of watching it on catch up is, you don't have to write any silly messages. You skip it.
Yeah.
Well, you can easily skip a minute intro.
Exactly. And I think that it would be fair to say that we will bear that advice in mind for all future episodes.
Yes. I might just be a biatch about it and just think you're just squinting over nothing. So
I mean, that's my polite way of saying fuck off, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I just zoomed in the wrong screen. I'll zoom in on our screen there. But
yes.
Yeah, right. I better get on the chat. We've got to say hello to people in chat, haven't we?
Yes.
Trigger Christian. Plus, I wanted to ask you something because Alan. Yeah, what did you do last night on Paul Thorpe's channel?
Oh, yes. I had a really good chat with Paul, actually. I've not spoken to him before. I didn't know who he was a couple of weeks ago, as I've said. But I saw he was doing a lot. And as I'd seen him the night before on Dan Wootton's channel talking about uniting the right, I thought it would be quite interesting to talk with him about what that actually means and talking about how broad the right actually is and the problems inside the camp of what we are calling the right. I think it's actually, there are too many things that people are trying to pack together into one package that don't all fit. And it was a good conversation.
I hope you mentioned this channel. Plug it.
I'm not on here, I didn't, but I did, and this is for true, I did mention it to somebody who contacted me through Substack because of Paul's channel, and I mentioned on there that we would be having this discussion now at this particular time, so perhaps they'll join us later on.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I love a bit of free advertising.
But there is one thing as well that I would say is, and this, I know this won't come across very well, but I'll say it anyway because there's no other way you can do it. If you're going on a live stream and you're going to use fancy words, please make sure that you know what they actually mean before you use them. Because somebody on there last night made me laugh out loud because he said that something was metaphysical when he actually meant metaphorical, and the two things are completely different. And when you know the difference between the two, that sort of distinction is really hilarious because it was so wrong it couldn't be any different, you know. So, and just to clarify, in case you're sat there wondering that you don't know what they are, a metaphor is just a comparison between two things. When you would say that Wiz was a shark swimming through the water would be a metaphor. And something metaphysical is something that is not physical, but that we can discuss or we can perhaps measure, like truth or love or something abstract like that.
Right, happy days, happy days. Yeah. How you doing, Alan? Hope you're well.
We've lost everybody now. They've all left.
Yep. Grace is in the house. Bonjour, Grace. Bonjour.
Hello, Grace.
I was going to say, doesn't Kirsten and all the time? In proper interviews, probably not, but not proper interview. In proper speeches, probably not. But when he gets interviewed off the cuff, probably, because his head's just full of crap, innit?
Yeah.
So, they all do. It's a segue to lying. That also, because if you're telling the truth, you don't need to think. You can just say it. If you are a liar and you need to remember lies, then yes, it normally does sort of shine through in your discussion. So,
yes. Triggered Christian just raised an interesting point there that aren't metaphors metaphysical. So they can be. So I thought I'd just give an example here of how they can be. There's a very famous poem by John Donne, who's often described as a metaphysical poet. So he was writing in, let me see now, with the 16th, 17th century. I can't remember which one it was, but after the medieval period, but before the later Victorian period. I think it's around the sort of 1600s. And in this poem, basically, he sat in bed with his bird. And he wants to, she doesn't. And so he notices that there's a flea on the bed. And so he says to her, well, that flea bit you and it's got its blood in you. And it's bit me and it's got my blood in it. So inside the flea, both our blood is mixed together. So because it's already mixed together there, why don't we just go and have sex, basically? Bit of an unusual argument, but that's what the whole thing was about. And that was a poem that was actually on the national curriculum. I had to teach that to kids who were aged 15 and 16. Imagine that.
See, something like that, I'd call that something like the retarded poem concept. Like, what an absolute weird thing to say. To even think, because of that, we can have sex. And, okay, let's do a poem on that. That's just over, like, why? Why? So that's like me and you talk all the time on YouTube. So, right, we're brothers then.
Yeah, I mean, it's more, how can I put it?
Gay.
No, not gay. It's more to do with the actual comparison. I think when he's saying these things, that he's not being serious. He knows that isn't going to persuade her. So I think he's doing it to try and create a bit of humor, but it has truth behind it. But it's just a joking way of him wanting to have sex with her.
You were mentioned in the chat by Helen about your Substack, Paul Thorpe. How cool is that?
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Look, I ain't got a Substack, but I've got a Rocky stacked, just so you know.
Which is your favourite Rocky film, though?
Do you know what? They all bug me.
Really?
Yeah, I get the whatever. I mean, once you've seen one, it's like Jaws 1 and then Jaws 20. Yeah. You're like, oh, God. But I wouldn't really say a favourite because I watched it that long ago. I suppose the best one's always the best one. Do you know what I mean? I suppose.
Yeah.
To be fair.
I think is it the second one that has Mr. T in it? He was a good character. Yes.
Yeah, I like it. But I like Dolph Lundgren as well.
Yeah, Ivan Drago was fantastic. He was terrifying.
Yeah, he's a beast, wasn't he?
Yeah. That film, if you're looking at things from my sort of area, is that's a cultural sort of watermark in many ways, because it's like the ultimate American macho Cold War film, and he manages to defeat the ultimate sort of Soviet super soldier by beating him at his own game and going back to basics. So a lot of the stuff then had a real political message behind it.
One people say, Reb, this one here, I believe stacked means it's got more vanilla in the middle. Made by Foxes, and then you got the Foxes triple. Foxes make lovely biscuits. I know they got all crap in them, but I'm living the dream.
But real Foxes are a pain in the arse.
Yes. Well, you shouldn't let it have sex with you then.
No, you shouldn't. No. I have to say, my town has a very, very long-standing, going back hundreds of years, tradition of having a Boxing Day hunt every single year, where they all get dressed up in their fancy riding clothes, go through the town with all their dogs, and then you get all the lefties start shouting at them and throwing things at them. They don't understand tradition.
Well, whatever next, I just don't get that. But ladies and gents, before we start the video today, don't want people moaning that we take so long to get to it. But what you see on screen here has been written or devised, there's a word, written, devised by Dr. Jake Forder. And obviously it's going to be, I assume, educational before the video. I wanted to get the word educational in as well, because it's a big, long word. But it means I'm not going to do much talking, and Jake is, so that's always a good thing.
Thank you. Yes. Now, it might look like a load of gobbledygook at the moment. I am going to translate it into simple layman's terms for everybody. But I think what we discovered last time was that the biggest issue was neither of the people that were speaking put forward a case for what they were actually wanting to talk about. I mean, Andrew did, but he had too many points, so his argument wasn't really clear enough. The other one didn't really get around to making any points at all. And we were saying how it would be best to pick a few things, like maybe 3 or 4, focus on them and put your argument across that way. So I thought, well, it's all very well and good saying that. It'd be better to show people how to actually approach it. So what I would have done, if it were me, is, and we're looking here at the first sentence, so you can see I've put it in fancy essay language there, that a strong critical argument would be structured around the distinction between early legal reform and later ideological expansion. So what I mean by that is that to have this discussion, you've got to make sure that you understand the difference between the early feminists and the later feminists, because they're not the same thing, and their opinions change over time, and their actions and their attitudes change over time for a variety of reasons. I would also, as I mentioned earlier, I'd said it's not everything isn't always good or bad. Sometimes there are things that cross over. And so I would have made it a more nuanced point, and I would have said, well, the first part of feminism was good and beneficial for society, but the later waves were not. And I'll elaborate on what I mean by that. So the first one we've got here, first wave feminism, it was broadly beneficial and socially constructive. So it's serving a specific purpose. It gave a benefit to people. It was constructive for society. Why was it? Because it addressed obvious legal inequalities, such as, what were the legal inequalities at the time? Well, women were the property of men. That's why they took on their names. They didn't have control of finances. They couldn't get a job. They couldn't vote. All of the things that a lot of people take for granted today, only 150 years ago, were not something that the women necessarily had. And it's also one of the big reasons why I'm so opposed to Islam, because it brings those back into society, which we don't want. So it had a measurable benefit. It also helped to expand the voting rights much later on. It brought in education. As I mentioned before, the first school I worked in was actually the first ever female college in the country, and that was created in the 20s, and it's something I'm very proud of having been working with. The next bit on the list that is really important and often forgotten as well today. Women were not allowed to own property. So they couldn't inherit anything, they couldn't pass anything on. And so that fundamentally changed because of women's rights movements too. And what that meant was that women, instead of being on the outside of society and men making all the decisions, which was what we learned last time called a patriarchy, this enabled women to take more of a role in public life. So they could, for example, having once been educated, they could write novels, things like that. And the whole point of this at that time was that they weren't trying to undermine society. They didn't want a revolution. What they wanted to do was they wanted to reform society. And a good example of this is Mary Wollstonecraft. She was writing in the late 18th century, and she said, "I do not wish women to have power over men, but over themselves." So you can see quite clearly there that she's saying, I'm not anti-men, I just want women to have more power. So that's my first point. Hopefully that was clear. If you have any questions, please say so. Okay, this is my issue with where feminism then starts to not benefit society. Because after they achieve all of this equality, feminism hasn't really got anything to complain about. So instead of trying to reform society, it moves into ideology. And it moves away from what rights do women have to looking at society as a whole and making criticisms of it as a whole. So I mentioned before how previously women didn't have property rights, they didn't have inheritance rights, they didn't have voting rights. So all of those things meant we lived in a patriarchal society. Once we move into this second wave of feminism, they start saying that that patriarchy still exists, even though women have got equality now. And so they call it things like privilege, oppression. And the movement becomes much more activist, it becomes much more anti-men, much more theoretical. And a good example of this is there's a woman called Valerie Solanas. She was writing in the late 60s. She was completely crazy. She invented a group called SCUM, which stood for the Society for Cutting Up Men. And she tried to kill the artist Andy Warhol by shooting him. And she infamously once said that all men are walking abortions. So that's the kind of people that we're talking about here. That's the kind of theory that was then moving through universities. And what happened is, once that theory came in, as you can see, I've got listed on here that the family unit started to weaken because women weren't in the home all the time anymore. Because they were out working, birth rates declined. Because of abortion, birth rates declined. Because of contraception, birth rates declined. Once you started having two-income households, the nation gets twice as much tax. At the same time, house prices can then start rising because there's more income coming in as well. Motherhood starts to become undervalued. Relations between men and women start to become adversarial. They're set against one another rather than being an equal partnership. It's starting to see that there was a distinction between the two, and they're quite violent in terms of its rhetoric at times. But I would argue, though, that at that time there were still some sensible feminists around. It wasn't until the later part of the second wave that happened. So the sort of people that I'm talking about initially who weren't all bad were people like Germaine Greer, some of Simone de Beauvoir, but later people would include such as Valerie Solanas that I mentioned earlier, and also a woman called Andrea Dworkin. She was the typical sort of 80s feminist. She was fat, she was ugly, she was really hated men. She said things like all sex is rape and all this kind of stuff. And she was really sort of the first sort of radical face of feminism. And for me, that's where feminism starts to go off the boil.
Right, okay. Shout out to Mind Blur 420. Jake, you'll understand 420, and that'd be a mind blur, wouldn't it?
Good. I've got no idea what that means.
That old chestnut. Right. Workplace criticism. Is that where we're up to? Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, essentially what happened is women gained an equal opportunity, but what they had to do to compete was they had to behave in a more masculine way. So did that really help? Because it didn't help to feminize the workplace. It just helped to masculinize women. And it led to greater competition. Families were forming much later, which is a big problem now. Women would put their career first, which is something that I know from personal experience can be very painful if you're a partner of somebody in that particular pattern. Then you've got like the working life patterns are not conducive to having a good family. And so really what happens is, as I said before, the workplace didn't become more feminine and nicer. It became more masculine and more competitive, and actually worse. And that's because these people were being increasingly hostile towards all of us sort of institutions like marriage, the family, and this gradually morphed into gender ideology and identity politics, which comes from sort of black studies. And there's a quotation from the feminist I mentioned earlier, Andrea Dworkin, that marriage as an institution developed from rape as I can't see what that says because it's got the chat on top of it, and I don't have my document open. From rape as a practice. So essentially she's saying that marriage is something that developed from rape. And I suppose in some ways she is right, because if you were to go right back to Stone Age men and the way that they would collect their women, then I suppose, yes, they would have raped them, and that did develop into the custom of marriage as a form of ownership. Yes, but the way that you phrase that, I think, is really important. So overall then, my argument would be very, very simple. The first wave of feminism was good. There were genuine injustice. It did help to improve society, but once equality was maintained, then there was a decline in certain standards because it became ideological and it wanted to try and improve society as a whole rather than just improving the chances for women. And what that actually did is, rather than strengthen society, it weakened it because it attacked the core aspect of society, which is the family unit and a shared cultural identity. So or to put it even more simply, to start with, it was really good. Later on, it went right up its arse. It got really radical. It pissed everyone off. And so people got fed up with it. And it's become the sort of trans, LGB nonsense, woke stuff that we have today.
And that's all you reckon from feminism, or it is from feminism? Oh, that's the last bit.
Feminism isn't the reason that we've got woke, but it's one part. It's one spoke of a wheel of leftist thinking that fed into it. A lot of it all comes from sort of. I just said then because I needed to think because I couldn't remember. Just therefore proving that saying does have a function. So, yes, I've completely forgotten what I was saying now, but it probably wasn't important anyway. Yes, it came from anti-black studies is where it came. A lot of stuff came from.
Right. Okay. Oh, that was very interesting. That's like being at school. That was for me. That was like educating me.
So sorry to bore everyone there with all of that and throw all this info at you, but what I was just trying to establish there is that is what these two should have done in their introduction, because I made it clear what I agreed with, what I didn't agree with. I've mentioned a couple of authors or scholars from the field to prove my point. The examples I gave as bullet points were there to stimulate discussion, so that later in the discussion I could say something like, well, it's had this effect on the family unit, and then I could talk a bit more about why. Neither of them have done that. So the reason I wanted to show everyone is it is simple. This is all you've got to do. You can turn a really simple idea into fancy language quite easily if you know the words. And that's what both of these should have done as preparation before they got into this debate. What neither of them have done is any of that sort of stuff. And what I just showed you there is something that is a reasonably high level of intellectual study. This isn't something that people won't usually encounter feminism at the depth that I just gave it to you until they study something like it at university. So it is quite an advanced concept for a lot of people. And maybe these two are experts in it and are going to tell us more about it as we move on. I don't know. But from what I remember, they just seemed to spend a lot of time arguing about what words meant.
Yep. And to start this off, I went back about 1 minute because, you know, we'll all remember what Andrew said and have a little dig at her about, you know, you might want to look it up.
And
so I thought we'll have that bit.
Just to clarify how simplifying something makes it easier to have a conversation, Wiz, do you remember what my argument is?
For what?
For whether or not feminism has been good or bad for society.
What, with what you just read out? Or your...
Yeah. Yeah, the stuff I just read out. Do you remember roughly what my argument was?
There's a reason why I never used to put my hand up at school.
I know it's horrible when people put you on the spot, I know. But one thing I learned from people questions is
I get the gist of what... Like, I know what you're saying. Like, there's two types, one good, one bad. The first one, bad. Second one, perfect. No. First one, good. Second one, bad.
Exactly.
Because it evolved in the wrong way.
That is exactly the answer that I was hoping for. Yes, perfect.
Oh.
So it wasn't a trick question or anything like that. That's why I'm trying to show it really is that simple. All I did in my argument, I spoke for about 5 minutes, but I only really said two things. It was good, then it wasn't. And you've just summarized it there. So it shows how much easier it is to understand somebody's position when you know it's simply what they actually mean. For these two, we couldn't say at the moment what they believe in.
Yeah. It just felt like when you said it, I was like, yeah, if I say that, it doesn't, like, for everything you've just said, it felt like an insult for me to say it like within a sentence or two. Do you know what I mean? It didn't feel right because you just went for all that, and I'm like, well, one's good and one's bad.
Yeah, no, but that was the whole point, and that's how I think you should always try and approach things. Keep it simple, and then you can elaborate on things and make it more complex as the discussion moves forward. And hopefully that was clear. Yep. And also, I know that when you put people on the spot like that, I know what it's like. I hate it when people do it to me. And the one thing I really did learn is that you should never expect an immediate answer to a question. And so I always, when I ask it, I don't expect someone to suddenly respond. I allow people, to think about it, because sometimes you can't give an answer straight away. And oftentimes, when you've been asked a question like the one that I just asked, sometimes when you hear that question, you think, it can't be what I'm thinking because that's just too obvious and I'm going to look a complete twat if I say that. But, but I can't think of what else it could be. So it must be that, but I don't really want to say it. And then you do say it and you're right. Then that's a good thing, I think. It shows that you should trust your own beliefs.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I was like that when you said, oh, that's the answer I'm looking for. In my head, I'm like, really? I've just made your whole 10-minute discussion into literally one sentence that took me about 10 seconds to say it. One good, one bad. It just, I don't know, my brain, it's just the way it thinks. Or maybe it's a panic because you're so used to getting everything wrong. You just you then undermine yourself and think, no, but what you're saying is right. Yes, it is. It's in its simplest form, but that's basically the crux of the argument.
Yeah, exactly. And now let's suppose that we're having a debate here and I put forward that argument. If you're on the opposition, you're now going to be thinking strategically, right, well, there's no point talking about the good things in feminism because they agree with that. So it's not going to get us anywhere. What I need to focus on is what are they saying that feminism is bad for and how can I counter argue what they're saying? Or if I can't counter argue it, what could I do as a distraction to turn the conversation around to what I want it to be about instead?
Yeah, I get that.
Oh, define back. Good. I'm glad to see you, Foxy.
I would have actually said something like that if we were debating. I would have, probably turn around something like said something along the lines of, so after all that, one's good, one's bad. I would have said something like that to try and maybe flip it, as you're the more educated and you've gone into it like that, in a way to try and put you on the back foot, or maybe even to try and make you look silly that you've just gone all into that, when you could have just said, oh, in the 1800s this, in the 1900s onwards that. But no, you've gone all hoity-toity. Do you know what I mean?
Now you see that's something that if we're having a normal conversation, that would be perfectly fine to do, because you're introducing humor into it, but at the same time trying to undermine the person doing it. But in a debate situation, that is not going to look good on you doing that, because that would then look like you're not willing to have an argument. You're just there to insult someone. And that's what's really important about the understanding of the situation they're in. I completely agree with you. That would be a great way to do it, yes. What I think would be a better way to do it would be to say something like, so I said it led to the breakdown of the family unit. So I would, if I were on the opposite side, I'd say, so what factors led to the breakdown of the unit? What specific things can you identify that occurred directly as a result of feminism?
Right, yeah, I get you.
Something like that, where you are pinning them down to a particular thing that they've said.
Yeah.
And that's why in the bullet points that I listed, I left it vague enough so that there's room to maneuver.
Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. How you doing, Pouncy? Good to have you here with us. And oh, look, Defiant Fox. When you said Foxy, I was like, wait, quick, where? He's back.
He's back.
People are asking for you, mate. I was even saying in the stream, I was like, oh, I hope he's all right. I haven't seen him for a while. So, yeah, he's all good. Bill's in the house. Can't keep track of when your streams are now. Would be helpful if YouTube put upcoming lives in order. Yeah, you should do. They're up on the top. Just remember, Monday, Wednesday, Sunday at 1 o'clock, and then a Thursday night. But I do try and put them up a bit beforehand now. So if you go onto my actual channel, they should be in order. And then just click on the notifies, because I think I put up Mondays because we're talking about the local elections, and I put up Wednesdays because I think we're going to start with J.K. Rowling slamming Starmer, which I just thought was marvelous. And then obviously whatever news evolves in the next few days, I'll be keeping an eye and we'll be talking about that as well. So but if you're ever in doubt, it should be on my about bit. It should say literally, as soon as you go on my page and look, instead of clicking on the about, it says straight away Monday, Wednesday, Sunday 1 p.m, Thursday 7 p.m. But I'll put the little ticker at the top so you can see it, mate. So I don't know if that helps in any shape or form. I don't know. And another mind blur, 420, £2. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. £4 to the dentist bill.
Only another 3,999 to go. No, yeah. I just want to say to Defiant Fox that I hope you're doing well, and just try and take each day as it comes. Don't look any further ahead than that if you're having any difficulties. And my sympathies are with you. I understand. It's tough.
And if it makes you feel better, I've got to try and find up to £4,000. I mean, if it all goes well, it will be £3,000. But there could be issues with a couple of teeth. And I've got to go to a specialist, and you've got to pay through the nose to have them removed. Yeah. Hence why it could be up to £4,000. So fingers crossed.
Now you see,
it's only £3,000.
I would suggest something along the lines of robbing a bank, that kind of thing. But I think that our appearances are a bit too distinctive. Don't think we'd get away with it. So we'll have to think of something else.
I can't think who sings it, but you have to have a look on YouTube, Defiant Fox, because when my brain's having a moment, it's called the chorus. It's where my demons hide. I can't think who. Actually, let me see if I can. So the screen are blank because I put another screen over it. But don't worry, it's. I just want to see if I can find the song for you, mate. Because there's some songs I find when I'm having crap moments. There's certain songs that I have to listen to. Oh, it's Imagine Dragons. Demons. Look it up. 1.2 billion views from 13 years ago. But listen to that, mate. And then I can listen to anything. Like I'll have I'll put on a certain tune, and it might be one like I'm like open my heart out here. I hate admitting it, but I can listen to certain music and it will physically make me cry. Part of being an empath, it's a bit of a. But
Yeah.
if I spend an hour or two listening to that music and then I click onto the next one, my brain sort of goes into, oh, I want more of whatever. And it's like by crying, it's out. I'm getting it out. Do you know what I mean? It's embarrassing, but it seems to work. Other
Yes.
times it could be the opposite. I'm down. I'll listen to a bit of, I don't know, dance. And I'm like, oh yeah, that beat, yeah. And then that brings me up. So it depends what sort of I mean, to me, I don't want to get all too scientific, but to me, I'm not saying other people because they're like, what you on about? But to me, I've got two types of depression going on. One when I'm like, it's black, and one when I say it's red, but you know, black because it's evil, it's horrible. You just don't want to go there. Put it that way. Red is I'm sort of like that, but there's something in me where I'm fighting it, and if it's the dance music, that can pull me out of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helped you define it, Fox, or write shit down. Start writing how you're feeling, as if you're writing a song or a poem. Write it down, and then when you read it, you'll read it about a week later, and then you might throw it away or whatever. But it's there. You'll read it, and it makes it real, and you can understand it.
Absolutely. I mean, we've all had our own difficult times, and I know that certainly when I've had difficult times, I tried writing about it, like you just mentioned, and I found what worked for me was just to describe my own circumstances, but from the point of view of somebody watching rather than being in it myself, because it then helped me to understand the sort of situation from above. Now, that might not work for everybody, but it worked for me. The other thing that worked is what you were saying about being creative. I did a lot of music during that period because that was the only way I felt I could communicate properly at that time. I felt that words couldn't do justice to those thoughts, but somehow music can. And I think that that's why music is so powerful. It's because it's something that is universal, and it's something where you really can feel someone's thoughts or feelings or emotions when they play an instrument, or if they sing, you can feel the actual passion in what they're doing. And yes, it's embarrassing that sometimes music can bring people to tears. It happened to me. It happened that when I saw Prince for the second time, and he played Purple Rain, and the guitar solo he played lasted for ages. It was completely improvised, and it was just the most amazing and melancholy thing I'd ever heard. And I didn't even realize until I got to the end of it that there were tears pouring down my cheeks. And I didn't feel embarrassed about it. I felt proud that that music had had that effect on me.
Yeah.
We all have our ways of coping with things. And the thing that's important is just take one day at a time, get through that day. And it will take time, but you'll get there.
Yeah. When people, like, anyone says to you something like, oh, get over it, or oh, you'll get over it, and that, like, they're the people you don't need in your life, because honestly, it's once you're in the bracket, like with me, with depression and bipolar, it's there. I understand, and I'm at peace with the fact it will never ever go away. Never. It will always be a part of me. It's like it's in my DNA. You know, sometimes it's sort of hard to admit. It's not like, oh, I will get better. Oh, in a year's time, in 5 years' time, in 10, no, in 20 years' time, you'll still have it with you, and you'll know it's with you. So come to terms with the fact that it is a part of you. It doesn't have to define you, but I find at times it can make me a better person, because without it, I would not open up. I wouldn't talk like I'm talking now and open up about it. But the fact, like, you know, Jake says whatever and you say whatever, I'm like, well, you know, we're all in the same boat here. So maybe if I say it and say it the right way, you'll understand and think, oh, and it might help a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
I hope so. I really do hope so, because it's something that a lot of us go through, and we don't always have an outlet where we can talk about it. And I've mentioned before, I was fortunate in that I got to go to a small group, and it was really, really helpful. Even though it was my idea of hell, it really did help. And whatever it is that can occupy your mind from the thoughts you're having, is, if it's something that's beneficial, then that's a good thing. Like, I can see gaming's been mentioned. That's something that I did as well. I did a lot of that. But mostly I tried to be creative. And like you were just saying then, I think it's very easy to say that we're cursed because of the things that we have associated with it. But I think that actually we should be grateful for the other side of the things that we have. Because I know that I don't have bipolar, but I do have things like that can be a bit like sort of the hyper phase of manic depression, where I will obsessively study a subject, for example, or obsessively study how to play a piece of music. But it's usually related to something, so that's why it's different from like a bipolar type of thing. But I completely understand that, why people get the way that they are. Anything can trigger these things. It's never one thing that causes it. It's always a multitude of things that are happening in the background. And the main thing to remember is that it isn't your fault. It's something that it's unfortunate that you have to deal with that. It's even more unfortunate that most people don't understand it and don't want to help you out with that. But ultimately, it's who you are, and you just have to find your own way of coping with it. And one of the things that I did is, anyone who was bringing any negativity, then I just thought, fuck them, and don't want anything to do with them. And so the only people that I speak to anymore, apart from on here, is my family, because they were the only people that were any help whatsoever to me over the last few years. Anyone who was apparently a friend never bothered getting in touch to so much as say, how are you doing? And fuck right off, as far as I'm concerned. They're not friends.
That's basically it. He says that he's literally in the black now. Like, I mean, yeah, for me, when I say I'm in the black, I mean, that's when I'm at my worst. So I'm assuming when I said that, that's why you said that.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, we can all sit here and until the cows come home and say whatever. Sometimes, obviously, it helps to hear other people say whatever, but it's not something you can just snap out of. That's what people don't understand, because your mental state is not a choice. That's why it's so hard to fight, because you don't wake up and go, right, today, the sun's out, we've got to do that. No, I'm going to be depressed. You don't do that. And I don't know what planet people are on to think that maybe, you make yourself like that. No, we don't. It's life lived, mate. Well, they say, try spends some time in my shoes and see how long you bloody last, because you bloody wouldn't, mate. You wouldn't. And to sum it up.
Yeah, sorry, I overspoke. No, I overspoke. You were going to sum up.
To sum up, like, how hard it is for me, I'll always compare myself to my sister because she didn't survive it, whereas I have. So it goes to show that we've near enough walked the same path both our lives, but for some strange reason, even after my heart attack, I'm still here. And believe you me, mate, since then, I've never in my life wanted to live so bad. Why? Because I died. I spent 3 minutes dead. The amount of how scary that was, the fear that went through me. As soon as my granddaughter walked in the hospital, like, I was crying. I was like, my God, this was all gone. And for me now, when I get the thoughts and whatever you may be doing to put you in the black, I think of that and I can switch my brain. I've learned to sort of grab it and just rip it out and go, hang on a minute. No, heart attack, 3 minutes. How did you feel then? Yeah, well, you don't want to be dead, do you? No, you don't. You want to live more now than ever. Yes, I do. So, and it's not even like, yes, you need a reason to live. Of course you do. But this is so personal to what it is to you. Maybe it is, mate, and to me, and maybe to Jake, that it's something inside you that needs or wants to live. if you can find that, it is sort of easier to fight, because
Yeah,
you know that when you get that feeling, and I've been there, mate. I've literally been on a bridge. I've done loads of stuff. Like, when I think about it now, I cringe and think, oh my God, what have I had done that? Because at least with a heart attack, I might have been had a 1 in 10 chance, but I am that one.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
wow. So, and my other channel, that Wizard's World, I've actually changed it this morning, funny enough, to put I put life, reality, UFOs and all that. I'm actually going to have it more about me, life, like a vlog or whatever, and I will be talking about mental health on that channel. So, if anyone, Jake, Defiant Fox, Pouncy, whatever, to do with mental health, if it's but I do find I can end up wallowing in it, and I'm
yeah.
watching video after video about depression, and that doesn't help me. It's
No,
keeping me in it because
yeah,
it's surrounding me. And then every video you see on YouTube, it then goes, oh, depression, this, oh, 5 things with depression, 10 things with, no, it doesn't work like that. We're all different.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
that. They don't do you any good. It's so personal. But if I give you my story, Jake gives you your story, they could be so different. But you'll be like, do you know what? A bit of what Jake said makes sense, and a bit of what the Wiz said made sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, things that work for me might not work for everybody. But I don't have bipolar depression, so obviously the way that I experience it will be different from the way that Wiz experiences it. But even though it's essentially the same thing, and I think what gets left out of this discussion is that often depression isn't necessarily some sort of chemical imbalance within the brain. Often it's the result of circumstances. It's often the result of choices that other people have made that affect you and give you and bring trauma to your life that is then unresolved, and then it comes out much later in life, and that often isn't spoken about enough. But I think that I saw earlier in the chat people mentioned about men crying. Obviously, nobody wants some snot-nosed crybaby who sits there and cries over everything. No one wants somebody weak like that. But I think that a man who never cries is a weak man, because there are things that are overwhelmingly sad, and that you should let out the the emotion that you actually have. Like, for example, my aunt, who I was close to, she died last year, and it was horrible going to her funeral. I couldn't stop crying because I thought I'll never see her again. But now I have her old kitchen table in my kitchen, so every time I sit there to do some work or eat my tea, I always just tap it, and I know that my aunt is there, in a very sort of superstitious Suffolk way that we are around here. But we all have different things and different ways of coping with it. And I would say the best advice I was given came from a psychologist who said that it's not something that you can cure, but the best way to cope with it is a combination of some form of talking therapy and medication. And the combination of those depend on the person and their circumstances and all that sort of stuff. I do not like taking antidepressants because I don't like the side effects. I'm trying to cut down on them because I've found that having prescription medication, which I won't name so that you don't get demonetized, but is green and you can smoke, helps me much more than any antidepressants.
Yep. I can second it, but I can also unravel that, because I was the same. Like, literally, like, I would panic. I wouldn't be able to eat. I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I had to. And there was times, even like, short of money or whatever, I was panicking. Like, if I don't have that, I'll be up all night. I'll literally be up till 7-8 o'clock in the morning. It's ridiculous. But since I actually had the heart attack and came out, I realised my brain was lying to me. It wasn't that bad, like the sleeping and the eating side of it. I mean, I'm not talking about the actual depression here, because I didn't sort of really elaborate on that last time. But sleeping, yeah, I can sleep, and eat, yeah, I can eat. I don't need it for that. It was more, I find, like, I know you can get certain strains, and there's a certain one, like Wensleydale, like cheese, say, that can whack you out. Now, believe it or not, if you have some of that and then sit on your sofa and just mong watching telly, there's no way in hell ever you're going to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
So by doing that, I kept myself safe because
Yes.
I wouldn't react to what my brain's doing because I couldn't move.
Yeah.
So it does serve a purpose. And that's why I've always said to people like, yes, I quit smoking and I quit obviously smoking that. But I would never sit here and tell people and start preaching, oh, yeah, I quit. You got to stop. I've never have. We've had a few discussions and I'm like, yeah, no, carry on smoking. If you feel you need it, you need it. There's no one who knows you better than you. It's as simple as that. So regardless of what people say.
I don't know if other people do this, if it's just me, but sometimes I like to just what I call hibernate, where I just don't want to speak to anyone at all. And I just want to just do my thing. And I'm that sort of person anyway. I'm the sort of person, I get annoyed if I get text messages. So I don't give my number out to many people because I just don't want to be bothered by people. And if I know them, then it's fine. You can contact me. If I don't, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to have to deal with that sort of thing because when I get up in the morning, I think to myself, right, what do I want to do today? And I think of something that I can actually achieve. So it might be I'll learn a piece of music or I'll read a book because, as I've said, I'm lucky I can read very quickly. I can easily read a book in an afternoon. And then I might want to read another one. So I just decide on an activity I want to do that day, and then I make sure that I get it done. I also make sure every single day that I eat at the same time every single day. I go to bed at the same time every day because it really helps to have structure and routine for me and my sleeping needs, but I think for everybody as well. And the other thing that I do is, I have mentioned this before, is I deliberately make myself go to the supermarket and go to the shops instead of having it ordered in. So that way I make sure that I do have some form of social activity going on. And doing those things, I find, helps to give a structure and a balance because my problem was that I spent 20 years building up a career and a relationship and all of that sort of thing. And then the rug was pulled out from under my feet and it caused a complete identity collapse. It's a very difficult thing to come back from. And it's taken 7 or 8 years just to get to this point. But the one thing all the way through it that I've thought is that I was never going to give up. And I always tell myself, and I don't know how true this is or what, perhaps it's just a superstition, but whenever it's a really difficult time, I always tell myself that I've been here 1,000 times before and I know exactly what to do. All I've got to do is just let my mind take care of itself. And that's the way that I see everything. I think philosophically, I think that all of us have lost our purpose as to why we're actually here. And we get distracted by other things that aren't material things that aren't important. When what we're really here for is to develop our knowledge and our wisdom of ourselves and to try and understand our place in the world in a better way. And so that's what I try to do now. And I'm never going to have all of the answers. All I can do is just try to understand as much as I can and have really interesting conversations with people. Such as, I must mention this, a couple of nights ago I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine called Pastor George. He has a channel called Counsel and Might, and he was doing a live about links between the Bible and UFOs. And he was talking about all the disclosure videos that have come out and all the passages in the Bible that mention things that are UFO related and talking about the rapture and the end of the world. So anyone who's interested in that, I'll put the name of his site in the chat. They are Bible scholars. I'm not, so a lot of it I don't understand. But if you're interested in religion, it's a good place to go. And Pastor George is somebody who is an absolute expert on the Bible. He is the one person I would go directly to if I had a question about anything in the Bible, because I know he'll know the answer.
Fair play. Sorry. There you go, ladies and gents. That's Christy. Olga, I left your name up there because I realised you are the first person to, I believe you upgraded to the Ultimate Wizard in the subscriptions to be a member. I was like, Ultimate Wizard. So you get an extra shout out for that, because I don't know if you know, ladies and gents, we got Wizard, there's Silver Wizard, there's Golden Wizard, and now I added Ultimate Wizard. And Olga is the first Ultimate Wizard. And I believe we have a couple like Phil and I think it might have been Olga actually. They were Golden Wizards. So what? Holy crap. Robert, did you hit a wrong button or something there, mate?
Shit on a stick.
Yeah, that's what I've just done.
Yeah, I bet you fucking have.
Bloomin' heck. I've gone, so I don't know what to say.
Wow.
Well, yeah, wow. That's the biggest like ever super chat. I mean, I don't know what to say. Are you sure, Robert? Are you sure, mate? That is so generous. I mean, I'm lost for words, mate. My face is the same colour as that. It's gone bright red. I'm like, what? Holy
Good
crap, mate.
You're a good man, and thank you for doing that for Wiz.
Yeah. Wow.
It's got to be worth half a tooth. Yes, Phil, it has.
Half a tooth. Yeah. But oh my god.
Do you know what I think? I think he's trying to shame us into getting on with watching this video, because we've now gone over it. We still haven't got started, just like last time. We only meant to say
it's been an hour.
That was it. We just wanted to say hello to everyone, and now look where we are.
Mate, my chest has gone. I'll tell you, I'm like, whoa, holy crap, mate. It's like you just literally nearly gave me another heart attack. Oh, mate, I really, really appreciate that. I can't say thanks enough. I mean, blimey, how generous are you? Thank you. I don't know what else to say. I'll leave it up on screen for a bit for you. You've earned the time, I think, to have your thing on screen. Plus, I want to show it off a bit longer. Like, oh, blimey, heck. But wow, yeah.
Yes. Wow, Robert,
you made me go. I don't know what I'm doing now, mate.
You're a good man. Let's just press play then, and so we can think of something to say.
Yeah, that's it. Right, let's start. Yeah, we're starting from the bit where we said about if you want a definition, look it up. That's where we're starting from, ladies and gents. So after an hour and 2 minutes, I'm pressing play.
Would it be deontological or consequential?
Yeah.
I think it's fine to use a mixture of both.
Like threshold deontology, something like that?
Well, I don't subscribe to a particular normative framework. That's why I'm saying I'm fine with using principles of both.
So it's just relativism?
Do you think that if not deontology and not consequentialism, then relativism?
No, I think if no normative framework, likely relativism is what I think.
I probably lean towards relativism.
Okay. Gotcha. So inside of the principle of harm, since it's proprietary, I actually don't feel like I got a definition from you. If you want to look a definition up, because it's really hard to find words on the fly, I'm actually fine with that.
Well, what I'm saying to you is that I find multiple types of things to be harm. So it's not just that I have one set definition that fits all sets of things that I count as harm.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell me what harm is, though.
Yeah, sure. I gave you, look.
That just tells me that you think lots of things are that.
I gave you two examples of definitions. So the first example would be if you have a counterfactual world. Do you know what that means when I say counterfactual?
Nope.
Okay. So imagine there's a possible world.
That was her doing her little bit in response there, wasn't it? Counterfactual. Do you know what that means? Nope. Or maybe he does, but he wants her to actually describe it. So, they're on the same playing field again.
Yeah. What he's doing is he's essentially, to use crude layman terms, he's whipped his out underneath the table and is flipping it about, going, look how big mine is, with all these fancy words and my macho way of speaking to you to try and confuse you by using deliberately complex sounding words so that will make you look and feel stupid. And you're quite right. She's taken the bait and she's now thrown it back at him. He won't give a fuck, though. That's the difference. He's used to it. She's already rattled by it. But also, it's notice the difference though in how they're having to define what is being said, because what their introduction should have done is make everything clear, and they obviously aren't doing that because then they can't even talk about the concepts yet.
Yeah.
Whereas before I presented 2 things only. Yes, it was good to start with, then it wasn't. That was all I would need to say about it. Don't need to have any of this conversation they're having at all.
You know, X action or X thing had not occurred to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're better off in that possible world where that thing had not occurred, then you've been harmed. So that would be like a counterfactual type of harm.
And you
There's
believe
harms
that?
of-
And you believe that?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that is the case in some cases. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then what's the other?
There's harms of deprivation.
Okay.
So, and that kind of ties into the counterfactual account, right? Like I can say, if you were going to inherit $1 billion and I took that $1 billion, I'm depriving you of that thing that you already had claim to. So that would be harm.
Deprivation.
There can be
Okay.
deprivation harms.
Gotcha.
There can be psychological accounts.
Okay. And then my next semantic question for you is, what is a woman?
So I think a woman, and I do have a definition written down, but is someone who has dispositions towards traits that are associated with females.
Okay.
Matt Walsh.
Yeah, I think we'll have to stop it there for a second. I think we'll have to. That just made me laugh because he's deliberately winding her up by saying that. I mean, that is the way he's posing it is a rhetorical question, and by that I mean he knows the answer because it's so obvious what a woman is. He's trying to get her to say something that makes her look stupid, because every single person in the world knows what a woman is. And anyone who tries to pretend any otherwise is completely and utterly deluded. And we all know it's just 3 words: adult, human, female.
That's ruthless, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Typically
So
associated with females, maybe.
Largely.
Fishing there in a way as well. He's kind of fishing as well as insulting her. He's fishing to draw information out of her to use against her.
Yeah. Look, it does. I make little as well as I go to learn things.
Based around
Bastards.
self-ID.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
Like,
Self-identification.
yeah, self-identification.
No, I know what ID means. I'm asking, what do you mean when you say that definition is based
Well, you
around
say
self-ID?
it's traits around what is feminine or what is female.
Traits that are typically associated with females.
Yeah. So I don't know how.
I just want to say my chat stumps that one.
Yeah.
Just to say,
Well done.
just wanted to say.
Best man. What I would say as well, sorry to interrupt there, but just as they were talking, what they're doing is they're talking about some of the things that I mentioned earlier on. What Andrew is trying to do is establish what her beliefs are around gender. Because the early feminists that I mentioned, it was quite specific. They knew exactly what a woman was. But once you get to the second wave of feminism, people started then saying that female isn't just biological, it's also a social role, and society creates a role for you. And so their argument was that you need to reshape society to stop it giving those roles to women. And that's the point that she's trying to make. Andrew is making a biological claim.
Yeah. I did say thank you. I was just don't know how to bloom and say it, mate. Yeah, it is Pouncy.
It is
In
The record-
dollars.
stunning.
I assume that'll go through some YouTube converter to pounds, whatever that might be. But
Yeah,
either
you
way,
get 12 quid from it. That's it. That's all you're getting.
I was going to say £16.80, like 10%. If only, mate. If only.
But it's such bullshit, as someone has quite rightly put in the comments there, that this self-identification, that just because you believe or feel that you are something, that means you are it, is absolute bullshit. There's absolutely no distinction, for example, between claiming to be a woman, which is a biological reality, and somebody saying that they're of a different race, which is also a biological reality. But they won't accept if I were to say I identify as black. But they would accept if a man is quite clearly a man as well, says I identify as a woman, they'll accept that complete and utter contradiction. I mean, I went shopping the other day, there was a bloke in there, full beard, he's wearing a fucking dress.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
That's
I mean, I
just-
shouldn't look in the mirror when I go to supermarkets, but you don't expect to see that sort of thing, do you?
Yeah, it's such an insult to women, though, isn't it?
It is an absolute insult to women, because the main aspect of femininity, whether or not the body can support this, is the act of creation. It's women that can carry children and who birth children and who nurture children. Men are there to provide the catalyst for that, but it's women who are actually the ones that are the nurturing ones. That role is something that biological fact doesn't, you're not going to be able to change it. And that's why you get things like a lot of feminists today will complain about the wage gap and that men earn more. One of the biggest reasons why they earn more is because women have to take time off because they're pregnant and look after children, something that men don't have to suffer from. And so there are things that are different between the two sexes that we have to allow for in society. We can say, yes, they can have the same rights, but we can't say that they are exactly the same in terms of their needs.
Yep. There's always one that's got to Google it. The Trigger Christian Googled it. But that's so generous of you, Robert. Yes. £123.19p pound sterling. It had to be Googled. I bet everyone's just looking at it going, but what is it? Oh, that's classic.
Yes.
Yes, but Olga, I do believe that women should have some power, but there is no way a woman should make a man feel inadequate. But then a man, the reverse of that is what I was going to get at then, but I got tongue-tied. A man shouldn't make a woman feel inadequate or less than what she is. Do you know what I mean?
I think if you're in a relationship and somebody's making you feel inadequate, then you shouldn't be in that relationship.
Yeah. No, I don't have any dresses, but I've got a wizard thing.
You should get a nice summary one.
Yeah, I should. I've got an A cup, I think. but yeah, that's classic. Right, let's crack on.
How you would make the determination that you would associate with those except by self-IDing that way.
So that's a epistemic claim. That's not a problem with the definition, right? Like that's a question about, well, how do we find out if someone is this thing? That's not a question about what this thing is.
Yeah, but I'm just asking because you said traits. So I'm just clearing up what traits are.
So, okay. So you're asking me how we determine what the traits are?
No, I'm just asking what traits are.
You're asking what traits are associated with females?
No, just what traits themselves are.
You don't know what a trait is?
No, I'm asking you what a trait is.
A trait is a property of a thing.
Okay.
And
so then the property of the thing, in this case,
typical properties.
Why would he? That seems a bit strange to say that. Again, I think it's the case of would I say belittling her?
Yeah,
or undermining her possible intelligence, saying that, you know,
condescension. Yeah. That's exactly what he's doing. Talking down to her, he's condescending to her, which you can see in the word actually, on and descend, you know, literally going down, and that's precisely what he's doing. And he's done it by doing something a bit like I did earlier. He's trying to make a really simple point here, and she's thinking, "What? It can't be that simple." But whereas I meant it genuinely, there was a simple answer. She's now querying, why is he doing that? And it's thrown her. And she thinks he means, what sort of traits are you describing? And he's saying, no, I just mean, what does the word trait mean? Now, why would he be doing that isn't the question we should be asking ourselves. He obviously knows what a trait means. I think we can assume that she knows what a trait means before him having to ask it. So I would suggest that the reason he's doing it is to belittle her, but also it's giving him extra time to think of his next point that he wants to say.
Yeah.
It's whatever the association with the feminine or female is what makes woman.
With females, yeah.
Okay, got it.
And that's just one definition. There are sufficient other definitions.
And then what is a woman in the context of women's rights? And then I only have one more to clear these up.
That's actually a really good question. It's highly contextual. So if we're talking about like women's rights not to be maybe like essayed or something like that, obviously that's going to encompass people who are perceived in society as women, because those people, one, have a right not to be, essayed. And two, those people are perceived in the same way that females are perceived in that instance. But if we're talking about something like, if I want to say, well, women have the right to abortions, I'm talking about people specifically with uteruses that, can get pregnant and can have abortions.
Hang on a second. Did you just say women with uteruses?
Yeah.
She did say that, didn't she? Women with uteruses. Yeah. Now, I think
not
you should...
men, not men that say they're women, basically.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to qualify it by saying women with uteruses. It should be taken as read that a woman has a uterus. Now, granted, some women are born without one, or they're born without a working one, or there are some kind of problems that they might have. That doesn't alter the fact that they're still a woman. They're still designed to have a uterus, whether or not they've got one or whether or not it's working. The point is that they have one and men don't. So therefore, you shouldn't ever have to say people with uteruses. You should say women, because it's something that only women have.
Yeah, get it. Yeah, it's strange to have to define that, isn't it? But
yeah,
I think that's to do with her age and her probably wasted education as well for saying that.
Yeah. I should think so.
A lot more in the younger community, doesn't it? Like, oh yeah, well, women, them with uteruses, and that those that can actually have an abortion.
Yeah.
So.
And
like I said, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, carry on.
Do you believe, in this case, standpoint theory? Do you know feminist standpoint theory? Are you aware of standpoint theory at all?
Can you describe what you mean?
It's that the history should be told through the lens of women, not just through the lens of men.
Through the lens of women, not just men. So it both included in the history, or
nope. It's that because women have their own their own experiences when it comes to A, B, and C, that history needs to be revised also through the view of women.
That would depend, and I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that enough to commit to that.
No big deal. I just wanted to
tell you what he's done there. What he's doing is he's essentially asking her to say that should we look through history through the perspective of women instead of men, which is what we've traditionally done. And there are a lot of people who are woke who used to say this terrible word, calling it her story instead of his story. Now, the reason that the feminists would say that is because the people who had access to writing were men, because women didn't have the education. They weren't taught to write. They were taught domestic chores, or they were taught to breed and be diplomatic if they were aristocratic. So what he's really doing isn't actually relevant at this point. And again, he's just doing it to not necessarily to belittle her, but he's deliberately trying to throw her. Like that bit, do you know what standpoint theory is? As if it's something really obvious that everyone should know.
Yeah.
She could have called him out on that one, really. I mean, I know she kind of did in asking him to define it, but she could have just said, no, I'm afraid I don't know what that is. Could you explain it to me and where that comes from? Because he never mentioned the scholars who originated that theory.
What's it? But thing is though, like if you're going to get like, I don't know, say a story of war on the battlefield, the chances it's going to be a man who writes that book.
Exactly.
So, you know, I assume there are women that do that now, but I've never seen a woman come up with, you know, wearing all that sort of psyops stuff, all that stuff, you know, and there's a picture and saying like, you know, she fought in Afghanistan and available now, the book. I've not seen that. So
no, because it didn't happen, because there weren't women on the battlefield. I mean, yes, there have been odd occasions where there have been, like there's the famous, although apparently it's made up, sniper from Russia that killed 200 odd people, and stories of people at the Amazons, this mighty female unit. So I'm not saying that there's never been females on the battlefront, but it has been majority men. The role of women has usually been behind the lines in terms of supplies, medical care, that sort of thing. And so if you were to read a letter, say, for example, from the American Civil War, from one of the women who were involved behind the battle lines, you might get a different story than you would if you heard it directly from the soldier who'd been on the front lines. And that could give us an interesting understanding of the way the two different sexes viewed warfare at that particular time. And that would be quite an interesting comparison to make.
Yep. So, yeah, that's where I draw the line to Planet Fox. Such a long comment. We only got half of Jake's face now. But pregnant persons, like, don't say pregnant persons because it's women, in it. So, yeah, I would have been exactly the same as you, mate. Second one, I think there's been 8. Well, there can be 80. You're still born a man. You can have a transplant where you like. I mean, put a horse's tail on my bum. I'm not a horse. I'm a man.
No.
So,
well, put it this way. Some green-haired trans wannabe, whatever they decide to call themselves, or some bloke who decides that he's a woman, doesn't matter which one you want to pick, either one that's picked an identity category. In 100 years' time, when that person is dead, if they dug up their bones and took their DNA, what is it going to say? Is it going to say what they felt they were, or is it going to say what they actually were? I think we know the answer.
Yeah, I do the same analogy with 100 people in an aeroplane and it crashes, but one of them was a trans woman, but it come back saying 100% of the DNA found was male. So same thing, isn't it?
Exactly.
But a bit more death with an aeroplane crash. So.
A bit more emotive.
Yeah. Oh, look at this DNA. It seems to be saying something else. What's it say? It's coming back saying, "How do I feel?" Oh, that's a trans person.
Exactly. It doesn't even make any logical sense to do it. And that's why Andrew actually mentioned women's rights, because he is specifically trying to tie her down to that. I would imagine that he's later then going to say that men are trying to take on women's rights and get into women's spaces and that sort of thing. So that's where I assume he'd be going with that, which would be a smart thing to do.
Yeah, it just makes me laugh. Like when I do that, you can see just at the bottom there, by the timer, it says the little chapter defining a woman. Like what? That just makes me chuckle.
Asked because I would have had a few semantic questions there too. So that's it. I'm done with my inquiry on semantics. I just wanted to clear up a few of those things.
Sure. Okay. So, and you know, the main one that I wanted to get clear on was the egalitarianism, because I hear you say that a lot, where you say like, oh, well, you know, it's impossible, whatever claim you make about egalitarianism.
Well, for the purpose of this, if we're talking about feminism, I do think that there's many feminists who do move towards the claim of egalitarianism being equality of outcome. But if you're saying that you're not one of those feminists, it's not really worth harping on. So I'm fine with this definitionally just including for egalitarianism the idea of equality of opportunity.
Okay, let me clarify what he's getting at here, because again, he's using longer words that might not necessarily sink in when you first hear them. What he's looking at is the difference between equality and equity. And he's saying egalitarianism means everybody has equality of outcome. So you all get the same opportunity. But people on the left believe in equity, which is that everybody should get the same outcome. So equality is saying everybody has the right to go for that job. But equity is saying, well, some people don't have as many opportunities, so we should give them more of a chance of getting that job to make society more equal, which I think is fundamentally wrong. But that's what he's trying to establish here. Does she mean equality of outcome, or does she mean equality of opportunity?
Yep.
And I
Again,
agree with Brian Fox there. Nothing on earth is more attractive than the female form. And in fact, if you actually look closely enough into the mythology, I am quite convinced that the Holy Grail is a representation of the female form. And that's what Holy Grail means, the female.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, it's near enough sort of what you said last time, but reworded. A full sex change. You still are what you're born. If you're born a man and say I've had a full sex change, then you're a man that's had a full sex change. You're a man.
Well, let's be honest about this. Having a sex change, what it means is they cut your balls off, they cut your cock down the middle and split it and make a fake vagina out of it that is a hole that you have to physically keep open regularly, otherwise it's going to close up. So you're effectively creating a wound that you have to keep open. That does not make a person a woman. It just makes somebody with a deformed cock.
Yep.
And the same, you can put it round vice versa as well for women being changed too. It's just because something looks like something doesn't mean that it actually is that something.
Yep.
Yes,
yeah, basically, it's all cosmetic. Well, any? I know you can get born with both, but that's obviously just a hiccup in.
Well, actually, I know from watching Edge of the Matrix that isn't actually true. You can't be born with both. Even if what you have is a variety of different intersex terms, and in all of them, you're fundamentally either more male or more female. But you can't actually be both. Yeah,
that's what I'm led to. I know you can have the appropriate organs, but sometimes one of the organs may not even work as it's supposed to, or something.
Yeah, or they might not even be visible. They could be internal. You could live your whole life and not know that they're there. There's a variety of different conditions.
That's a good one. Sewing wings on your back doesn't make you a bird.
Yeah, exactly. And also, how do these people know what being a woman actually feels like? If you've never been one, and you can never actually get into the body of one physically, how can you actually know what it's like to be one? Because the priorities are completely different for a man than they are for a woman.
Yeah, I think it's like, from what I've witnessed or what I've seen in life, I think it's a bit of an insult to belittle the old monthly cycles of a female, because some of them are in horrific pain. And Absolutely. To then say, oh, by the way, now I'm a woman and I'm on my period, mate, shut up. Just shut that. That is such an insult to women. It winds me up.
It winds me up as well. And issues to do with women and girls are hugely important to me because I grew up in a female environment. There weren't any male role models. When I was teaching, I taught girls in girls' schools. So it's much more of a personal thing for me to feel that sort of sense of affinity. And I will always look to try and help women, and more than I will any man who I don't have any trust for whatsoever. Apart from myself, obviously.
Yeah.
I have no issues there. I don't know if you had any other semantics that you wanted to clear up before we got into the debate.
I was going to say, to go on with the debate geese. Bad as us. Look, we're an hour and a half in, and you're 21 minutes in.
Assuming for woman or gender or whatever, you just take the biological definition, adult human female. Okay.
Yes,
that's fine.
Science.
So do you want to get into like open discussion or?
Just get the fuck on with it.
Now we can move into it. So I can.
That's what they've been saying to me and you, mate.
Yes, they've been shouting at us all afternoon.
Sorry, but it's Sunday. We got loads of time. Yes. If you're watching a catch up, you need to jump to about an hour.
I'll go back to my first argument here. Let me pull it up. First argument being that feminism erodes the family, and that was its stated goal. Are you pretty familiar with early feminist writers?
Okay, let's just pause that there.
Yeah, so early feminism,
Oh.
the first
Just so we can make sure that we know what the topic of the conversation is here. He said that feminism was its aim was to erode the family, and that it always has been. Now, that isn't true, because if you think back to what I said earlier about Mary Wollstonecraft, the idea was not that they'd get revenge on men, it's just that they become better as women and get more of an equality and opportunity. There was nothing there that said about eroding the family. The aim was not to destroy the family. And so she, if she knows about feminism, even to a modicum of a degree, should be able to challenge him on that point. But I think it would be interesting to see what his argument is and what she actually has to say in response to... Sorry, I just read that message.
Yeah, made me chuckle. I literally hit mute on my mic and pressed play so I could eat my crisp without people hearing it, and you went pause it. I was like, oh wait, you get, but the actual microphone was still dubbed, but you know.
first waves of them started in like depending on what country you're looking at, but mainly in America in the late 1800s.
Great.
And then it moved into the early 1900s. And that focused around kind of economic equality, the right to own property, the right to vote, et cetera.
Yeah, well, it depends on if it was communist, but focusing on America, yes, largely. So the idea was to erode the traditional family, or the idea of a patriarchal family where the man was at the head of the family unit, the woman operated in a support role with children, this kind of thing. Would you dispute that eroding that was a goal of feminism?
That would be an empirical claim that I might not be able to say one way or another. There might be feminist theorists who say, like, you know, yes, we want to completely erode every single patriarchal family. And there are some feminist theorists who say that. A lot of those are later feminists. But some of them would go, you know, all we want is for women to have, you know, the right, like I said, the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to get equal access to jobs, equal access to education, things like that.
Well, then we can just jump to modern feminism then. I think
so. You're fine with that.
She missed a trick there.
That version of feminism that I just presented to you, the historic
it's
version.
not going to hurt my argument.
He's talking specifically, or he was, about early feminism wanting to erode the family. What she should have done there is explained the reasons why, and that they just wanted to have the same positions in society that men had. They didn't want to take over, but they just wanted to have fairness. That's what she should have responded with, but she's obviously misheard what he said, because the response she gave wasn't about early feminism, she was talking about later feminism. He's now picked up on that and said, right, well, let's just jump all of that and go straight into modern feminism. So his point that it has always been about eroding the family has now been missed, and he's now being able to direct the conversation around it being eroding the family and proving that he's right.
Right. So he thinks that the newer form of feminism is to erode the family unit, so to speak. Is that his argument?
That is his argument, but there's more to it than just that. His argument is that that has always been the aim of feminism, has always been to erode the family.
So right.
Even at the start, they wanted that. She then misheard him, and she talked about the modern feminists. So he has said, okay, he's thinking, right, well, you know, fuck all about the first wave of feminists, so we'll just assume that I'm right and we'll carry on. And he's now taking it as read that feminism has always wanted to erode the family, when in fact that isn't true.
I'd agree with what you said, because I mean, there's a lot with this new feminism to unpack, but the older form was what we said. So yeah, I agree that, you know, they had good intentions on behalf of women, full stop. Yeah. Now, because of these ideologies and this and that, everything else, there's probably women out there who don't even realize, but what they're fighting for would ruin it, because if If women are out doing this, that, and everything else, where's the family unit? When are you going to have kids? Oh no, it's too late. Or oh right, we only had one, we're going to have two, and there's going to be so many sort of situations and whatever that. Yeah, I would be even now leaning towards that. Probably this new feminism is not a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. And I think it's really just very, very simple. If we were to go back to the first wave of feminists, they're saying things such as, we're not allowed to inherit property, that's unfair. So there's a very real, measurable change that they want, that they managed to achieve. Once they've then achieved it, you then get the modern feminists who start twisting that around and getting other things out of it by saying, well, it's not just that it's unfair, that oppresses women, so women should be given more of an inheritance than men because they have to put up with more, or something like that. Some bullshit argument that what I'm getting at is this some bullshit argument that doesn't have a specific measurable outcome. And that's why they love the phrase systemic oppression, because they say that the system creates harms, but there's absolutely no proof for it all because it's all just to do with how I feel. It's absolute bullshit.
Yep. Pamsy, you're mixing it all up, me old China. One, there's transvestites, men dressed as women, never claiming to be women. And this age, the woke stuff, it's all gone out sort of peak tongue. You know, there's like I just said, there's loads to unpack on this as well. But I know anyone who's genuinely like got mental health issues and they feel that they're in the wrong body, etc. Hopefully they get the help. But you got them like say Blair White and whoever. They do what they do in life privately. It's not, look at me, I'm a victim. It's not, oh, look, all over my Instagram, please love bomb me. Look at my Facebook post, poor me. No, they're genuine mental trauma and body trauma that they're going through. They done in the privacy of their own home. They didn't broadcast it for look at me moments. That's the difference, I think.
Yeah, and I think to answer the question there, I'm not entirely sure, but I think the first sex change was done in the 60s or in the 70s. I have also read somewhere that Nazis experimented on doing things like that as well. So it could have happened before that, but it's definitely a 20th century thing. And I think most people in society will accept transvesticism, even though we might find it odd. I think most people will even accept transsexualism, such as Blair White. But I think it's when there's something that isn't actually measurable and they're just saying, I feel like this, that's when everyone is saying, no, this is just bollocks. What you're talking about there's not gender, you're just talking about personality. And that wave, which is kind of the fourth wave, this is something that comes in specifically at around 2010 and after that, especially after 2015, it starts to become massive.
Yep. Being taken away as everyone in the world will be Islam. It needs to be taken away from the world, but we don't need Islam. We don't need this trans crap. The world doesn't need it at all. Yeah. It is of no benefit to the human race. If anything, it will stop us evolving. But
He's made a really good point here, actually. A really good point. And I think it applies to far more than just this topic. But he's got a friend who's had a full sex change. They never say anything about it and no one would ever know. I think if you could replace full sex change there with is black or is a Muslim or any minority you choose, if they never say anything about it, no one knows and they just go about their business, everyone is fine with it. But when they start to make that their identity and you have to conform to what they believe in, that's a problem. Because if you don't believe in it, why should you have to admit something that you don't believe to be true?
Exactly. And yes, Blair White does. BLAIR, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, Blair White very much does.
Yep. So, but the thing is, let's be honest, though. She is who she is and probably been it for years. And if she actually walked past anyone and walked into the ladies, who would question it?
Yeah.
Who?
That's true. Although I would say, though, that that Blair White is more the exception than the rule. I would say that the majority of them you can spot a mile away by two things: the Adam's apple and their hands. Always
And
the
a beard.
giveaway. The
They
beard
always
is
seem to want to
pretty
keep.
big giveaway.
Why is it they feel that adamant they should be a woman? They keep the beard, like the video I'd done with the bloke at the in Oxford University.
Yeah, or the bloke who I saw in the supermarket the other day.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
When it comes to trans like Blair White, that's where I'm like, they are who they are, doing what they do. That they're not. Whenever we heard Blair White turn around and say like, oh, you know, about all this, what a woman is, and this and that, and oh my rights, and poor me, and poor me, and poor me. Never.
Yeah.
So she's what I would call a genuine trans.
Yes.
And like I say, they've done it in the privacy of their own home. And a lot of those sort of people, I'm not, you know, say, oh, I'll give them sympathy or whatever, but I feel sorry for them for what they've been through or for what they're going through or for where they've come out. But I do pray that they are happy with who they become, because it's not, you know, we're sitting here saying with mental health, like, we don't like, I don't know, how am I going to say it?
Well, I think that there is definitely a cause for saying that this is an online phenomenon, because before sort of 2010s era, transsexualism and that sort of thing was mostly affected males, but transgenderism is something that mostly affects females. And a lot of the time, it's what it really is it's a reaction to their body going through puberty, and it's just a fad that they're cottoning on to that is very, very popular at the moment. Like when I was teaching, it was very, very popular for girls to get into self-harm and cut their arms up. That trend then went out of favor for a while, and it always comes back again every now and again. But it might be next year, there might be a trend for witchcraft or the occult or something like that. There's always something that appeals to the young in that way, and I think that people online have, I wouldn't go so far as to say radicalized, but certainly there is an element of grooming, and I don't mean sexual grooming, I mean psychological grooming, in that convincing people that the changes in their body and ways they feel about people around them define who they actually are, and that isn't the case at all. It's just their personality. And it's dangerous, because if they start taking medication such as puberty blockers, it's not like you're watching a VHS and you just press pause. It's not like that at all. It can make you infertile. And the people who believe that it is just sort of semi-permanent are deluding themselves. The same drugs that they're using to block puberty are the exact same drugs they use to chemically castrate paedophiles in the US.
Wow. Again, Pouncy, it's still a man, isn't it? You can do what you like. It's still a man. Biologically, you are a man. DNA test, man. So it doesn't matter what you do, how you do it, what you take away, what you add, you're a man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can, like I said, it's the Adam's apple is always a giveaway, but never forget the hands. I always look at people's hands because there's so much you can learn about them. But a man pretending to be a woman, dead giveaway is the hands. If you want to know a woman's age, look at her hands. You can tell.
That's it.
What sort of job does somebody do? Look at their hands. See if they've got calluses on their fingers. Have they got clean hands? You can tell a lot.
Yep. Yeah, good people, they don't need recognition. You're right, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of it's to do with mental health. That's why they're bitchy. They're like, no, I want to be more of a victim than what you are. And they're like, no, I'm more of a victim than you are. That's what it is.
I mean, I only dealt with one transgender when I was teaching, but don't forget, I did finish teaching in 2018. So a lot of this was only still very new when I left. So there probably would have been, I would imagine, at the schools I worked in, there would have been a breakout of it that would have affected, and it would be a small minority, I would guess, in each year group of maybe 5 students, something like that, who'll suddenly decide they're going to cut their hair off. They want to make themselves look ugly, which is what they all try and do, and they're going to try and make out that they are a boy that day. And it makes them special. It gets them attention on that particular day. makes people wary of them because they can use it as a weapon against them and claim that you're misgendering them. And so it gives people that otherwise might have been sort of weak socially, and it gives them a social power within the school sort of framework.
Yeah, I can see what Grace is saying as well. Yeah, even my sister was a tomboy or whatever. Yeah, like, yeah, so she's gay. It doesn't mean she's born in the wrong body.
Yeah, I mean, there was someone I know when we were growing up, a friend of my sister's. He always used to want to play with dolls and prams, but he did grow up to be a queer, so there is something to it.
Oh, there we go then.
At all.
No, but that I just want to get really clear that feminism is good for society.
No, that's not good for. Still not good for society.
So then why are we?
But that would tie
jumping to modern
into
feminism?
that would tie well because if you're talking about feminism and modernity, so my argument's basically that feminism erodes the family, and that was its stated goal. That's my first argument. So right now, I'm giving you my argument. So in feminism, in modernity.
Sorry to keep butting in, but he just said it again, that his argument was it was its stated goal. That's the important point here, because the first wave of feminism, it was not their stated goal to erode the family. That's the argument she should be coming back with.
Modernity, at least we can agree, is attempting to erode at least the traditional family unit, what you would call the cross-generational or nuclear family unit.
Who's feminism, though? I mean, like you can argue with like hypothetical postmodern feminists, but if that's not me, then
I'll argue directly with you.
Okay, that's
Do you
fine.
promote alternative family units?
Do I promote them as a better alternative, like as better than a patriarchal family?
Even
Right,
equal to?
what they're saying here is, in case
Sure,
you didn't pick up on it, is, and it because they're trying to use elevated language here to make themselves sound more clever. What they're arguing about here is alternative families, by which he means should there be gay dads or lesbian parents. So hopefully that's made it a bit clearer for people listening, if you weren't sure.
Yeah, and there's a few cases of that makes me sort of. I've always thought like being adopted myself or whatever, and like the home that you lived in, you think, oh, you know, like 2 women, 2 men, a better life. At least they got a secure family that hopefully blah blah blah. But there's some stories that are coming out that are absolutely horrific with regards to men, gay men adopting children, and
yes, there was one last week, wasn't there, with a teacher who'd killed it was horrible story. I mean, I personally, this is a personal opinion, people may disagree with it, it's up to them, but in my opinion there is a mum and a dad. There is no such thing as 2 dads or 2 mums. It doesn't exist.
No. Yep. I agree with that, but if there was some way like the adopted child was going to a gay couple, I think the child would be better in a female gay couple.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it is about him, but the from what I've seen and heard anyway, I was going to say it rubs me up the wrong way, but I better not go down that road. But
I know what you mean, though. There's more likelihood for abuse when it's men, whether it's VA or SA. It's far more likely if it's male. And if you've got 2 men, then it's going to double the chances of that happening.
Yep. Whereas women, I think, you know, I don't know, not assuming, but I think that in the gay relationship, at least one of those women, maybe both, still have maternal instincts as a female and to look after a child.
You know, there's one thing that's always bugged me and intrigued me about lesbians, which is, why is it that the ones you meet in real life don't look anything like the ones you see in films? Why is it that all lesbians look the same? Short, fat, dumpy, short hair, often spiked, great big clumpy shoes, jeans, act really blokey. Why is that?
I reckon because when they get to a certain age, they look in the mirror, they see what they are, and they think, no man's going to want me. Right, I'm a lesbian.
Could be. I think you've got a point there. I'm willing to go with it.
Yeah, but I mean, I've known a few lesbians, very nice people. Like some gay men are nice people, but when it comes to children and that, I'm a bit. I'm not so. I used to be like someone who's adopted. I'm just like, yeah, if you're in a good family environment. But then even that, I didn't think hard enough to sort of criticize the fact that that's not actually a family environment, because you're talking about two women. So
it's really difficult when you bring in something like adoption and that kind of thing, because the ultimate aim is what's going to be best for the child. And I'm not saying that two people of the same sex couldn't provide a better standard of life. There are occasions where they could. What I'm saying is it shouldn't be standard, that it should just be allowed. What I think, whenever you're looking at children who are being cared for, whether it's foster parenting, whether it's teaching, whether it's doing after school clubs, I think that what is the most important thing is to be absolutely certain that the people who are there have got a track record that is clean and is professional, and that there are no question marks about them. And the only way that that's going to happen is through them getting experience and being checked as well, of course, because you don't know what you're letting yourself in for. People lie all the time. Unfortunately, like I said, it's rare in my profession. I never actually encountered any abuse that came from staff, but you do read about it in the papers. You do hear stories about it. There's been quite a rise actually the last few years of younger women sleeping with older boys, and I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, I think Olga. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm not. Not all women are motherly, maternal.
No, they're not. No, not everyone wants children. That's just how life is.
Yeah, so yes. And through your experience, Olga, I'm not gonna say you're wrong on that one. You're obviously right. But even my sister had a girl or two that a couple of them were quite horrible and nasty and whatever. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I 100% agree.
It's strange how our lived experience of things doesn't always tally with our opinions. So, for example, I've never actually met any lesbians that are nice. Does that mean that all lesbians are horrible, though? I don't know. But on the other hand, in my personal life, all of the Muslims I've ever met have been extremely nice, polite, pleasant people. But does that mean that I now suddenly have great sympathy and empathy for them? No, it doesn't. I know what they believe in.
But even Ace used to come on here. Good news, bad news.
Yeah, Ace. Yeah. She's a fine. Nice. She's a good lesbian. Yes.
Yes, I don't know where she's gone or what she's doing now, but hopefully she's.
No.
Nothing's come up on that channel, or that I know of actually, because YouTube hasn't told me.
I don't think in any group you can ever say that everybody is fully good or fully bad, because there's just too much variability. But what I do think we need to do is get rid of this really stupid idea that you can't make sweeping statements about communities. You can say, I think all Muslims are like this. You shouldn't have to say most are, but some are not. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think in some cases they're equal, some cases they're better.
If you had government programs which promoted the nuclear family or the cross-generational family at a propaganda level, national level, like we would do with patriotism during a war, things like that, do you think that we would have more or less as it came to traditional family units, more or less?
More or less family units if we put out propaganda?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it depends on how effective the propaganda is, but sure. I mean, we probably would have more traditional family units.
Right. So then if you do a promotion for alternative family units, that would erode that, right?
For alternative, you mean?
Well, necessarily, if it's going to increase the amount of traditional family units, if there's national propaganda to move towards that.
I didn't say necessarily. I said likely, but.
Okay, but even likely, then it would be likely the other way around.
Sure, it would be likely the other way around.
Yeah. He's definitely getting her into a trap with this, because he's getting her to agree that propaganda changes people's minds. Therefore, all propaganda works in the same way. And that isn't actually the case, because I think her argument, and I agree with her, is that she's saying, no, it's not always the case. People might not necessarily agree with the propaganda, and you're assuming that everybody will. Propaganda, it might be effective, but it doesn't always have the same effect. So it's not going to always be effective just because one aspect of it was. And he's deliberately trying to get her to stick to that because he thinks that that makes a win. But it's not, it's a trivial point. It's not really engaging with the topic as a whole, I don't think.
No.
But if we put out propaganda for something that people would latch onto it, most people do.
Sure. And do you agree with me that alternative family units is the propaganda which is now produced mostly out of leftist institutions, out of feminist institutions, and out of feminist propositions to government?
Well, remember, we're talking about my version of feminism, not
Your version.
You know,
Your
right.
version does that, right?
Have I given you much of I don't think I've told you much about my version of feminism.
Yeah, I think you have.
That's
your movement. So you just.
What was all the questions about then if she hasn't given her version?
Exactly. And she's right as well. She hasn't given her version of what feminism is.
No, because even when she had a moment to talk, wasn't it, the first 5-10 minutes or so, and she didn't even really say much there. She was too busy sort of questioning what he said already. Do you remember? I kept saying, didn't I?
I think what we've got going on here at the moment is I think she's probably quite nervous at this point, understandably so. I mean, I would be as well. He sat opposite Andrew Wilson, who does have a bullying style, let's be honest about that. He's doing it subtly, but he's trying to get her to fall into linguistic traps or philosophical or logical traps. And those traps are not honest. Sometimes they're dishonest, and he's not really engaging with the topic. And he hasn't really given her an opportunity yet to explain what feminism actually is. I mean, she, in her opening statement, didn't really make an opening statement. So perhaps she is going to say, now, that would be good. But he's trying to catch her out on simple little things, and that's not honest.
Yeah, even Grace and Slim said in the chat straight away she hadn't said anything. She didn't give her opening statement. So she gave her opening statement, but it wasn't an opening statement, like Jake said. So yes, Grace, you are correct. And yes, Slim, she hasn't said anything really to get into. So yeah, it's a bit strange, really.
Just got done saying that you would propagate or you would support the government itself pushing propaganda for alternative family units, right?
Wait, that's not. No, I didn't say that. I mean, we can watch this back, but what do you mean by that?
Okay, did you see what he did there?
Level.
He made a statement, and then at the end of it said, right. That is a rhetorical device. Rhetoric means the art of persuasion. And so by making a statement and then putting right on the end of it, psychologically you're thinking, I should agree with that. But actually, he's saying something that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
And she picks up on that here, and I think that was quite good that she does that. I don't think she is. I think Andrew Wilson is avoiding responsibility to avoid debate.
At this point, I'd say they're both like 50-50 in my eyes. Possibly.
Yeah, I can go with that.
I don't like to be wrong.
No.
Yeah, I mean, as it goes on, I'm going to change my mind, I expect, but we'll see.
But
the government doing.
Even their body language, you can see the difference between them, especially there. Now he looks like he's snarling. But you can see she's sat more forward. All the way through it, she's been more slouched. She doesn't feel comfortable. He, on the other hand, has been sat bolt upright the whole time. He's been writing lots down. Now, one trick I learned in teaching is that if you look like you're writing something down, people think you're doing something important, but you could just write any old bollocks down and no one's going to have a clue what you're doing. He could be doing that for all we know, but he looks much more confident. I'll change that. He looks more assertive than she does. Look at his shoulders and look at hers.
Yeah. was going to say something, then I went brain dead. Not for the first time. Anyway, right, let's carry on.
Things like putting LGBTQ flags all over the White House, maybe putting the White House in an LGBTQ flag, perhaps having NGOs, non-government organizations, which are left-wing think tanks, working hand-in-hand with government to push alternative family units, which are staunchly feminist and psychological institutions, things like that.
Okay, so I mean, we could bring up psychology, but I'm not sure what that had to do with that. But look, so we can say, you know, these are fine. These things are maybe working towards normalizing those types of family units. Calling them propaganda seems like a loaded way to say that. And that's fine. If you want to use loaded terms like that, you can. That's
well, we can unload it. I agree with you. Propaganda has a negative connotation. I just don't know a better way to say it that people understand.
So you think that the normalization or the attempt to, you know, normalize something is necessarily propaganda, or you think that there's a difference there?
No, I just said, I think propaganda has a negative connotation, like definitionally a negative connotation. But when I say the word propaganda, I think most people understand what I mean by that word, meaning there's a national campaign towards X.
A national okay. I mean, if all you're saying by a national campaign towards X is that people want people to be accepted as being gay, or people want to be seen as normal for having a gay family where they have, you know, two parents of the same sex and children that live in that household. If that's what you mean, then sure, I'm fine with the United States doing things like putting flags on their building, but not for that purpose. The reason that I'm fine with that, you know, something like putting a pride flag up during Pride Month, is because that's a representation of civil rights. Actually, I spoke, by the way, a little plug for my YouTube channel. I spoke at the Florida Senate about a month ago about this. It's an infringement on constitutional rights to not allow government entities to do that. Historically, the Supreme Court has ruled that way, by the way. But that is a promotion of the civil rights of those people, not a promotion of their lifestyle.
That's very, very important, what she's just said there. There's a distinction between the words promotion that she's using and propaganda, which Andrew is using. Propaganda is government-controlled information that is designed to nudge you towards a certain way of thinking. When she's saying, no, it's not doing that, it's just promoting a different way of living. So there's a big difference between what they're actually arguing there. And I think at the moment, she's got the upper hand. And again, you can see with the body language, she's caught him out here because she's now suddenly seemed far more knowledgeable than he thought she was. And she does know what she's talking about when it comes to things like laws and rules and that sort of thing. And he doesn't, by the look of it. So he's not happy with the fact that she's now made this distinction, because that is now, he's now got to defend his position that anything that promotes sort of LGB is propaganda. Right. And that might not be true.
Now, while it might also
wait, hang on, back up for me real quick. Did you just say that it's unconstitutional to govern for states to govern what now? Flags? Back that up. I just want to make sure I get this right.
Right. Yeah. It's so in the instances, and this is just a descriptor of historically how it's been, the Supreme Court has ruled it unconstitutional to regulate the types of speech that government entities can employ.
Government entities being.
Do you know what a government entity is?
I'm just asking you. So
no,
that
I'm just curious. Like, I just didn't know if you genuinely didn't know.
You do realize that you could have proprietary definitions of things that may not. I think it would be charitable to assume, that we're kind of using similar terms. Well, but that's fine. Well,
I think a government
do you mean state government? Do you mean federal government? Do you mean local government?
Historically, both. The Supreme Court.
Right. So when we say government entities, I'm just trying to untangle it. That's it.
Sure. I mean, okay. Sure. Yeah. Government entities historically, both on the federal level and the state level.
Okay. So like the Confederate flag.
He's completely derailed the conversation. He's deliberately just shifted the conversation away from what it actually is about, because he doesn't have the knowledge to come back with what she was talking about. And so he's choosing to focus on that, on this law, and trying to understand that sort of thing, rather than actually focus on the main point, which is that he said all of that is propaganda, and she's saying, no, it's just promotion. Because he can't argue against that, he's decided, I'm going to argue against this instead.
Right.
The Supreme Court has ruled it unconstitutional for that to be infringed upon.
Okay.
Now, the issue there can be a different argument against maybe why we shouldn't allow them to do it. Maybe it's not because it's unconstitutional, but maybe there's some other reason why we should infringe on their free speech.
Do you think we should?
On
The Confederate flag?
that would be a conversation about, what's the usefulness, what kind
No,
of
it'd be a
violence
conversation
could-
about whether or not you're consistent in your view that because states can do this, they
That's
should be
a-
able to do this, or they should do this.
That's a really
Do you-
good point that he just made there. He's asking for consistency. Should there be the same consistency for all flags? And he's used the Confederate flag there, which is the one, the Dukes of Hazzard one with the blue cross with the stars on and the red background. I've got one on top of my amplifier, actually. A lot of people in the States now consider that to be a racist flag because it's associated with all the Jim Crow racist laws in the South. And there were some states in the South, I think it was Mississippi and Georgia, had the Confederate flag, actually was part of their flag, and have now taken that away. And so he's saying, okay, you can have a pride flag there, and that's fine. What about a Confederate flag? Is that okay? Now, that's a really good point, but what has it got to do with feminism? Yes, I do that, Slim, you're right. That's exactly what you should do.
It's all about control.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh, okay, that's not true. Look,
That
what
that
I
is
was
true.
saying, what I was saying was that take the instance of, putting up can I say the word swastika? Was it? Yeah. Take, I put up
What? How weird's that? Can you say swastika?
But why would you not be allowed to say swastika? That is peak wokeness, that you can't even say something.
Yeah, as long as you're not wearing one, love, you'd be all right.
Exactly.
Oh.
Ridiculous.
nice 1942 flag up, on the state building or something like
Yeah.
that. And that causes some riot or that causes some violence or something like that. There might be an argument there to say, well, because it's had this specific negative outcome, then we should restrict them from doing that.
Good
However, that's
point.
not the case with the symbolization of, Pride Month, the gay flags that are put up on buildings. The intention there is to represent the civil rights of those people. That would be
Well,
like saying
it'd
you
be
can't
a
put up American flags.
This is a civil rights issue on either end.
Do you think that the Civil War was a civil rights issue?
No, it's a civil rights issue on either end for the flag itself. So you
yeah.
can't say, so if you say, well, this is negative, right, or this is positive, just because one is negative doesn't mean it's not the same civil rights issue that you're pointing at here. So if you're pointing at states historically can't say anything, or government entities can't say anything about what types of flags are put up on is it state property? Is that what you're referencing?
Right. So
Yeah.
government buildings.
Yeah, government buildings. Then it
State-funded
would still be a
buildings.
civil rights issue if you're saying that they shouldn't put up the Confederate flag. That would still be a civil rights problem.
I'm
No,
out.
not necessarily.
When I asked you,
No, she's made the point there that it would be a public order issue because she's saying that that flag could cause violence on the streets because of what it stands for, which I think is a valid point. That
So could the pride flag, though.
Yeah, it could. Exactly. That's the point that isn't really getting through with these people. That yes, if you're going to say it about one flag, you could say it about the other. And so how can you be consistent? And
Well,
I think Robert would be a good one actually to ask about this because I'm pretty sure he's based in Ohio. So I would
Yes.
imagine that for him, a Confederate flag is somewhere because that is sort of bordering the southern states. That would be a very controversial symbol where he actually is. And different people will have different views about what they think about the Confederate flag and what it means to them.
But then don't forget the United Kingdom, mate. The St. George's flag and the Union Jack seems to be offending at the moment and causing trouble, and it represents hate.
Yeah, that is exactly the same thing. I don't think it represents hate at all. I think it represents our country, our ancestral heritage, and our cultural inheritance. And anyone who says a national flag is a symbol of shame is somebody that really shouldn't be welcome within that society.
But we watch whether it's in bloody the East or we're watching some protests in London. They're flying the green Hamas flag and the Palestinian flag and everything. Do you know what I mean? And what they represent? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hate seeing that Hamas flag. I think that it should be declared a symbol of hate. I think it should be an arrestable offence to carry it or to be seen wearing it because it supports
Yeah.
terrorism.
Yeah.
I do not see how anyone can logically say that the St. George flag or the Union Jack is anything other than a national flag. Anything that you're attaching to it is entirely subjective.
Yep. Hang on 2 seconds. It's just let me just open my page because I haven't had it open yet. It's just come up saying that new subscription. I think it said Olga on it. I think. Don't want to assume.
I think it said Olga as well.
Oh, Olga Bear. Yes. There you go. Yep, I've got it. Olga Bear, have a Costa on me, Wiz and Jake. Oh, we will. We will. Thank you, Olga. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
See, our English flag isn't just representative of England. The St. George flag is also, I think, the flag of Georgia, the country Georgia. Is certainly the symbol of the city of Milan as well. You can see it if you look at the logo for AC Milan. It's got the St. George flag on it. I think that is because they were founded by a British person, and that tradition came from there. But they don't see it as racist. It isn't racist. What other country in the world looks at their own flag and says, I'm ashamed of it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, who does that?
That flag should... all of the Union flags, all the home nations and the Union flag should be on display outside every single public building.
Yeah. But we now live in a world where everyone lives to get offended. Or they choose. Yeah, so...
What's wrong with being proud of your country? I'm proud of my country. I'm proud of the fact that where I live is one of the most important historical places in this country because it's where a lot of the invasions were. So we've got Anglo-Saxon heritage here, Roman heritage, Normans. All of that history is something that throughout most of my life I've seen around me everywhere. And I want to preserve that. And I believe in the motto of my town, which is, let us forever hold fast to the old virtues. And I think that we need to hang on to our traditions and our cultures. We shouldn't lose them. Because the reason that people want to come to this country is because it's a great country. They're making it shit by coming here, but they're coming here because they know that it's great. And the society that we created is in many ways great, but it's become corrupted by successive governments who have been focusing too much on the wrong form of economics and not on what's best for this country. That's what needs to change, because we should be proud, because our country... I mean, you only have to look around your house. How many things around your house that you can currently see are British inventions? Most of them, probably.
Not that Quran.
No, that's invented by Satan.
Yeah, but other than that, I'm hoping me Costa in there. I wonder if that's
the tin probably is British designed.
Yeah, but I think they use
and whatever the likes of the people they get on GB News to talk about imperialism and all that bollocks have to say, regardless of that, the British Empire is the most benevolent empire and the largest empire that the world has ever seen. And it's absolute nonsense just to say that the countries were raided and plundered. We were trading with those countries. There were strict, specific trade contracts that were in place. It was not the case that people were going over there raping and pillaging like Vikings. It was completely different. Britain didn't have an army for a start to enforce it. It was all based on alliances. Always has been. We're only a small country. And that's why I'm so proud that a country like this could achieve so much in terms of culture, in terms of our literature, our inventions, our science. This country completely changed the world. And we're told we should be ashamed of that. Well, no, fuck that. I'm proud of it.
Yep, yeah, like Bouncy says, they're saying, "Oh, it's racist and far right." No, it's not.
So Robert there, yeah, he lives in Ohio, but he's from the South, so he's a Virginian. And that's, yeah, so for him, the Confederate flag will probably mean something very different from someone that's a native Ohioan who would see it very, very differently. Because again, in the South, a lot of people see that flag as a source of pride in the way that we do with our national flag. And in the South, they believe that their country, the country that they had, was taken from them. And so that a lot of the Civil War, not all of it, was about them trying to keep hold of their idea of a country. And they wanted to be separate from the other states. And so today, when they see that flag, that's a symbol to them of a lost country that they once had. When people are putting up our flag, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're saying, no, this is our tradition. We don't want it to become not our tradition.
Yep.
Yes, Pat, you know that I don't use that word. Yes.
Robert knows his history, look.
He does. Well, I should hope so, living in America. But it's something I've had to look into a lot because obviously my thesis is on Confederate statues, so I've had to look a lot into the symbolism of it and what the Confederate flag means and all that sort of thing. But it's good for Robert to be able to say that sort of thing and get a bit of an American perspective on things, because although we're both in the Anglosphere, American and English people do not have the same way of treating nationhood.
Very true.
Do you think that the Civil War was a civil rights issue? Do you think that the Confederate flag represents the civil rights of African Americans?
No.
Okay, right. So that's the symmetry breaker here.
Did you hear me knock then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's me getting the wife's attention to make a brew. I forgot to mute the mic.
Sure.
I'll have
And then
one
there's
too.
also the-
Sugars.
Hey, you'll have one as well.
Yes, please.
Well, what do you think a civil right is?
Do you think that the
Don't ask me a question before you answer my question. What do you think a civil right is?
I just thought we're doing all this about feminism. I've literally just leaned over, banged the floor, and expect my wife to come up to make me a coffee.
I know. How very Islamic of you. It's all that reading of the Quran. Just being near its proximity has turned you into a misogynist.
I'll probably have to bang again. She did say, she goes, "Oh, you always forgetting that," and I was like, "No, I'll just go without in that." And she goes, "I'll just bang on the floor and I'll come and I'll make one." She offered, ladies and she offered. Part and parcel, like we've been together over 26 years, so shut it.
That's a good thing.
I'm a very nice man. I've never ever given her a black eye unless she asked for it. All right?
Oh, that's very good of you. I'm glad you've got those standards.
Exactly.
Is
look, a civil right is, something, it's actually, I think, pretty vague in our legal language, but
yeah. So
a civil right is something like a human right that most people would call.
So, like, you have a right to put that flag up. Okay,
No,
great.
no.
I have a right to put that flag up too.
Okay, see, that's where the confusion is. So I'm talking about when I say, government entities have the right to put up like pride flags. The pride flag is the symbol of the civil rights of gay people to get married, own property, not be, have their house raided while they're having sex or something like that.
Well, okay. That's an assertion. So let's start with this. So you just making the claim like it is true that this flag represents this. That's great. It represents that to this group of people. I would make the same argument with the Confederate flag. Same exact argument. That's great that it represents a negative thing towards this group of people, but it represents a positive thing towards this group of people. It would be the same thing with the LGBTQ flag. It'd be the same argument both ways.
No, look, the problem here is that the condition that I gave for, it being fine for them to use this form of free speech is the fact that it represents the civil right of that group of people. But the flag, the Confederate flag, doesn't represent the civil rights of who?
It would represent the civil rights of any people who wanted to see consistency so that they can have their flag up if they so chose. That would still be a civil right.
That isn't, maybe there's some vagueness on the civil rights thing, but I don't think that you think that, putting a flag up wherever you want on whatever property you want is a civil right. You don't believe that, right?
I think that if you were going to be consistent with your view, you would need to believe that.
That's not, okay, this isn't answering my question. You don't think that it is a civil right to display.
I think
or
it's a civil right if you put up a gay flag
I'm not sure
on
why you interrupted
government
me.
buildings. Well, I'm trying to answer the question because you said I wasn't answering it. If you put it up on
I
a
have
government,
to re-ask it for you to
if you
answer
put
it.
it up on a government, you didn't ask me a question.
I was in the middle of asking you the
Okay,
question.
you
and
said I'm not
clarifying.
getting the answer, so I was just giving you the answer.
So look, the question was, do you think that it's a civil right to see your flag equally displayed? Because that was what you started to say.
No, I think that it would be equally consistent to say if you can have an LGBTQ flag flying on some state building and that's constitutional, then you'd have to say the same thing about a Confederate flag.
That the argument was from the fact that that flag represented the civil rights of that
I mean,
group.
that's nice. What I'm telling you is that that's an assertion. Like demonstrate the assertion.
That's an assertion based off of the Supreme Court historically ruling it that way. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not making I can make a moral claim, and we can talk about like why people shouldn't, because I think there might be like violence.
They've had a bit of a chat there, and there's a problem in what they're looking at in terms of what a flag represents. Her argument is you can put up the gay pride flag because it represents the rights of those people and that they've been given those rights. But that's not really why we fly flags. Flags are meant to be a representative of a nation and what a nation stands for. So there's a completely different purpose for them flying the flag. One is deliberately activist, rights-based. The other one is much more about national ideas and continuity and cohesion. Such as this flag, representing the southern states and the nation of the South. Whereas the gay flag is just for gay rights. I mean, who gives a fuck? Why do they need to have a flag? Hello. Why do they need...
Did you mum?
I did. Very briefly.
She's trying to stay out of camera.
Hello.
We're talking about feminism, and I said, like, obviously women's rights, and there's me banging on the floor thinking you come up and make me a brew. That's not very nice, is it? But she said, Deb, shout out, you offered, didn't you? If I banged, you said you're, yeah, see, I'm innocent. Think I'm abusing you. Cover my ass. But yeah, I think
the flag though is ultimately, you know, if you take this, all it is a piece of fabric with a design on it. That's ultimately what a flag is. What that design means varies from person to person. So all of this nonsense about flags is not really about flags, it's more about beliefs. And it's about people saying some beliefs are better than other beliefs and deserve to be celebrated, other ones shouldn't be. That's the point I think that they're trying to make here. You know, I personally don't think that there should be pride flags anywhere at any time, regardless of whether it's pride or not. I think it's an abomination. I think it has absolutely nothing to do with a reason for having a symbol such as a flag, and I think it's used as a means of intimidation to try and quieten people down and silence them.
Yep. Rainbow flags are cool. What for the program with Zippy and Bungle on it?
Yeah, up above the streets and houses.
Yeah. But yeah.
Good point.
This is what Jake said earlier, because he said something, didn't he? Andrew said something about the flag, and then you said, "Oh, look, he's sort of controlling the narrative and taking it away because he didn't want to talk about something else she said or whatever, wasn't it?"
Yes, exactly. He's wanted to distract her here to talk about flags, because then he can make the point that it's not consistent in the way that flags are being allowed to be presented. That you get what works for one flag you don't have the same standards for the other one. So that's a point that he's already familiar with. He's already argued it hundreds and hundreds of times. He knows it's easy pickings for him to resort back to that, so he can just throw it back at her, and he knows he's right, it's fine. But he's not engaging with the topic at all, though, here. This conversation isn't about pride flags or Confederate flags. It's about feminism being good or bad.
Yeah. Oh. That there. Sorry, mate. Clicked the wrong button there, and I put it right over that. Because I'm doing this through Brave so we don't get adverts, because I just think it's better. But as soon as any other screen goes up, it will actually hide it from this screen.
Oh, right. Okay.
Weird.
Weird.
By one versus the other, etc. But
Like,
Okay, so
I'm,
why should you be able to have the gay flag up but not the Confederate flag?
because I think that one represents the civil rights of a group, whereas the other one doesn't. One is more likely to incite violence. I don't think that
Do
the
you
pride
think that
flag being up is more
do
likely
you
to
think
incite violence.
heritage is part of
Okay,
civil rights?
Stop
I
that there
think
for a
that
second.
I think
Sorry. I know that was very, very quick. She just has made the point there that one of those flags, she's saying the Confederate, is likely to cause violence. Well, we could turn that around and we could say, yeah, but you put up that pride flag in the middle of Whitechapel and that would cause violence from Muslims. So your flag isn't as peaceful as you're trying to make out that it is. It can have the same effect that a Confederate flag would have. The flag is context dependent, is what I think the issue here is. But again, it's not feminism that they're talking about.
no.
heritage is part of civil rights.
Yeah, when you're talking about the historical use of the LGBTQ flag, for instance, this is going to have some type of like historical meaning to the people in which that flag represents, right?
Right.
Okay, isn't the Confederate flag going to have the exact same thing? It's going to have some kind of historical meaning when it comes to family lineage for people who live in the South, for people who, they had ancestors who fought in this war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be part of their heritage and history. So don't you think that that would have specific meaning to them as well?
Right. But there might, like I said, be overriding considerations. Like if hanging that flag caused violence or something like that. Obviously, you would say, like, okay, if we started hanging up Confederate flags and then more violence ensued against like African Americans, you would say we probably shouldn't hang it. Right.
So then by that metric, are you saying that if LGBTQ flags incited violence in people who were not LGBTQ, we should not hang LGBTQ flags?
Incited violence because of the flag itself? Like if it would have to be a
that
large
would be
amount,
the same thing.
It would have to be a large amount of violence.
Yeah. So as long as, so basically what you're saying then, just to make sure I got your view right, what you're actually saying here is as long as people who don't like the LGBTQ flag being up go ahead and commit a bunch of violence, they should probably take the LGBTQ flag down.
There would be multiple solutions to that, but that could be one of them. Yeah. If there was, like, let's say that was the only way to get people to stop being violent, that might be an alternative. Now, that's saying that that's like necessary to do to stop the violence. Now, if there's other things where we can preserve, like the protection of the displaying of it for civil rights purposes, for the representation of civil rights, and at the same time lower the violence in some other way, then yeah, we should do that alternative. You think that's controversial?
No, but now you're just switching the position, because initially what you said was this flag, if it's causing violence because it offends them so much that they can't help but become violent at the very look of it, or whatever it is, whatever it is that makes them respond negatively and commit violence because of this flag. All that would actually be doing is incentivizing people who are oppositional to the LGBTQ flag to commit violence, because then you would want to take that flag down, right?
Well, for one, I would say, listen, I would hold the same standard. Let's go back to this, because I would hold the same standard if we had a rule where we said, okay, we can display the Confederate flag and we can display the pride flags, whatever. If there started to be violence committed on one end because of the Confederate flag, I would say, like, okay, well, before we move to, taking the flag down, we should move to stopping the violence to whatever metric we can. Now, there might be other reasons why I think, like, maybe we shouldn't display a Confederate flag. I think the Confederate flag in and of itself represents the negative part of the history that shouldn't be displayed as if we're proud of it. I think it represents slavery. You don't think it does?
No, it doesn't represent slavery. It represents the heritage of people who had family members who died in the war on behalf of their beliefs.
And their beliefs were?
Well, the beliefs were to their state. It was being loyal to their state. Most Confederate soldiers didn't have any views on slavery, really, one way or the other. This was the higher-ups who had views like this. So the average soldier, in fact, there's one famous case of them saying, why is it that you're fighting in this war? You're so poor, you can't own a slave. And the response was, because y'all are here. So what that means is that as the North was invading the South, there was a lot of incentive for people to go and fight against it. They called it the War of Northern Aggression. And many of them had cause. They got their houses burned down, things like this, during Northern marches to assist in combat in that war. And yeah, I'm sure that people are very proud of the heritage that they come from in the South, from people fighting for the core beliefs and on behalf of their families, even if you don't like the cause itself. The cause itself is still very much baked into the American history, just like for instance, I couldn't ban the LGBTQ flag because of HIV, right? I couldn't be like, well, that's a stain on our history, the fact that there was a bunch of gay sex parties and they were giving it to each other. I couldn't do that, right? I don't think that you can make a good, honest argument as to why it is that people couldn't be proud of the heritage of their family fighting in the Civil War.
Look, the flag is a symbol of the leaders of that war, right?
No,
the,
it's
the
not.
people, you just admitted this, the people who respond in that way, oh, well, we're fighting because you guys are here. They're there because they're there. They live there. They're trying to protect their homes and properties. That's perfectly fine. The problem is the people who were starting those wars were the ones who were using those flags. That's like saying, like, well, so-and-so wasn't a Nazi and, well, I don't know if I can say that word, fuck. So-and-so wasn't a, Nazi in World War II. They just had families that were, Nazi members. Or maybe they were just fighting because they thought it was like a good thing. They were fighting the other powers that invaded. You wouldn't say certainly then that, like, they should allow Nazi flags on government buildings, right?
If the standard is that you were allowed to put up the flag of our choosing because it has some representation value that we see it as, like, let's say the people saw the Nazi flag as being something other than I heart Hitler, I wouldn't see a problem with that. No, of course not.
Okay, so even though that it is linked to that, it is linked to support of Hitler, and the
LGBTQ flag is linked to HIV.
Okay.
That's how, people see it. People see it as like, oh, wow, AIDS, right? They see the rainbow flag. I think a lot of people think AIDS.
Yeah, that's fine. But there's not like gay leaders that are out there like pushing for AIDS, right?
There's not like...
what happened to AIDS? You never hear about it now. It was all the rage in the early 90s and in the 80s.
Yeah.
He's got a good point.
So I was going to say, before you be sensible, let me have my little silly moment. All I remember is Roy Brown saying AIDS, like AIDS. He said that stands for arse injected death sentence.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Oh, never forgot that. It's hilarious, but yes. Right, back to sensibles. What are you saying, Jake?
His point is a good one. He's saying, what if people associate that flag with AIDS? That's exactly the same as you saying people associate slavery with the Confederate flag. So he does have a point here. She is wrong. The Confederate flag does not represent slavery. It's a battle flag that was meant there to indicate who the battalion was on the battlefield. It came to represent the states because it's such a vivid, bright symbol. And that came after the Civil War. So what she's really arguing is that flag represents slavery and racism in the South, and that the Civil War was about stopping that. And the Civil War was not about slavery, it was about states' rights. Part of the rights of a state was to own slaves, that's true, but it wasn't primarily about slavery. And in fact, and I thought of this when we were listening earlier, an interesting linguistic phenomenon is that in the South, it is forbidden to call it the Civil War. They had the United Daughters of the Confederacy wrote all the school books, and it was always called the war between the states. The Civil War is a very insulting way of describing that conflict to the South. I'm sure Robert would know about that.
Yeah. It's always the same sort of person that has to put up the same silly things. It says, what is the point of this debate when nobody agrees on anything? Is that not the reason to have a debate? Yes,
that is exactly the reason why you have a debate, so that you can see what the disagreements are. That's the entire point of it. Really.
But yes, you're right, Helen. Hope you're well, by the way. I don't know if I said hello or not. Yes, it's so much better controlled, etc., with medication, etc. I suppose. Yeah, it's like the flu, isn't it? I suppose now, where it's been medicated, everyone's used to it. The big thing's over and all that. But I think initially they were trying to use it as a weapon when it first came out, in order to target gays and to make them, I know, look bad, feel bad. I don't know. To me, what I remember back then, I just remember it being, oh yeah, oh you can't be gay because of that. Oh no, look that. Oh, how evil you must be to get that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of talk at the time about it being a manufactured virus as well to reduce the gay population. There also were lots of rumours that it was to do with African fucking green monkeys as well, I seem to recall.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Monkeys or
No
something.
smoke without fire.
No, that's very true. It's crazy. It's crazy, but you know,
Yeah.
it's because I tell it was like, you know what, we've got SARS,
Yeah.
COVID and all that. They're all apparently like coronaviruses or whatever. And apparently, I don't know if this is true. I don't know even know where I read it or heard it or something, but it's along the lines of this planet only knows one coronavirus. All the others were made by man from that coronavirus.
Really?
And I remember remembering that, thinking, do you know what? That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. And there was a rumour. I've just seen Robin has just put it in the chat here. And he's right. I remember there was an article in The Guardian. I remember reading it, not at the time, later on. It's from the early 80s, in which it alleged that the AIDS virus was given to people in Africa through a polio vaccine. Now, I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I wouldn't surprise me.
Anything's possible, but thing is, though, this what everyone loves, a good conspiracy theory, and that seems to spread a lot quicker than facts, which is annoying.
One thing I do know about it is, because my sister is a nurse, which is a midwife now actually, but she was a substance misuse worker for ages in Camden, and she told me that HIV is actually really quite hard to get. It's not something that you just tend to get, just by touching somebody. You really have to actually get, like, for example, blood into a cut that you've got or something like that. There really has to be that close mingling.
Right.
Anyway, if you're going around everywhere bumming people that you've no idea who they are, what the fuck do you expect to happen?
Yes, basically. How did we get there from feminism? I blame Andrew Wilson.
I blame him as well.
Like anybody out there pushing for the Confederacy? Who's pushing for the Confederacy?
I live in the Deep South. There's people pushing for the Confederacy.
Who? Give me a single actual institution of any kind, anywhere, or any real body of people, anywhere, who's pushing for the Confederacy.
What do you think that, I mean, there have been moves historically to cede some of the states again.
That's not the Confederacy.
Because of the, I was speaking, but there have been moves to cede states again for those particular reasons and go back to having the Confederacy again.
No, there's not.
I live in the South. I'm well, yeah.
There's not in modernity. No, there's no serious.
You can just say no, but you don't.
There's no serious move. Demonstrate it then. Show me a serious movement in modernity.
I mean, you could take people
anywhere.
Like the Proud Boys.
But the Proud Boys don't want the Confederacy. What are you talking about?
They are. Tons of them do.
No, they don't.
Tons of them.
I know Gavin McInnes personally. I know for sure that he had no plans to institute the Confederate States of America with the Proud Boys.
And by Confederate States,
Enrique, the former head, by the way, he's, I think, half black or half Hispanic himself. He has absolutely no plans to move towards the Confederate States of America. That's absurd.
They might not have practical plans to, but you couldn't ask some of these people. Like I said, I live in the South. I mean, like, we can table this here because if it's just going to be like a miracle claim, there's absolutely no one.
That's a trust me, bro argument. I live in the South, therefore I know everything that happens in the South. I don't have to give any examples because I've seen it with my own eyes. Well, that doesn't cut the mustard in a debate. What she needs to do is say, well, there's this group, they really want to reintroduce the Confederacy, and there's my example. If she'd done that, he wouldn't have anything he could come back with. But that's not what's happening.
They're not there to agree, mate. That's why it's called a debate.
Yes,
and
the word debate, if you have a look at the etymology of the word debate, you will find out that it actually means to fight. And to fight involves two people going back and forward.
Yeah. So you're saying that actual whole concept of a debate is boring.
Yes, so you would prefer inertia, and that wouldn't be boring. Interesting argument. You prefer inertia to action. Well done.
What Olga said.
Yeah.
Do one.
Good to see you,
It
blessed
isn't-
down below. Really glad you're here.
Yeah, with your wise words. Oh, we're watching a debate. Oh, it's just back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Like watching football. Oh, they're just kicking a ball.
Yeah. Yeah, are they? Oh.
That's pushing for the Confederacy. I think that's absurd.
No, that's not what I said. What did I actually say? What was my actual position?
Repeat it.
My actual position was there's no serious body anywhere, not an NGO even that I'm aware of that is pushing for the reinstitution of the Confederate States of America. Not a single one and that the Confederate flag. The only thing you seem to be able to appeal to is, well, because in the South there was slavery, and this was a flag that the South utilized, that means, therefore, that it's a symbol of slavery. That is not only is that not logical, it doesn't follow, right? But you haven't even demonstrated that the people who want the flag there view it as...
Good stuff. He's right.
I thought you were going to say more then. So I thought, oh, better stop it quick.
There's always a winner in football, by the way, blessed down below. Not always a winner. There are draws.
That's very true. Oh,
a symbol of slavery. They clearly don't. Only the opposition does, right?
Are you guys okay if we move this back to feminism, though?
Yeah,
or
But this is part of the
I
consistency
think
of the
that's a
world.
really
I
good
just
point
want to make it.
to end up on, actually, because I just realised we've been here for fucking hours. But
yeah,
that's
I know.
that's a really good point to pause it, though, because Brian is now coming in and saying, look, for fuck's sake, you're meant to be talking about feminism, not fucking Confederates. And why haven't they talked about feminism? Because Andrew, and it was Andrew, steered the conversation away from it so that he could talk about things that he felt more comfortable talking about. Now, in the duration of what we've seen so far, I think they've actually been very respectful to one another. They're not talking over each other. They're not insulting each other. There's been a bit of passive-aggressive sparring, but there's been no raised voices. There's been no insults. And I think in that regard, that was very, very good. But in terms of a debate, if I were assessing them on this, then both of them would be getting an E grade at the moment, because neither of them have engaged with the topic in a meaningful way whatsoever.
Agreed. So what I'll do is I will put a, believe it or not, actually I don't mind, it actually works out quite well. I'll put up another thumbnail, the same as the other two, but I'll have a part 3 and we'll look at that Thursday 7 p.m.
Yeah,
that'd be good. Because Monday, there's no point doing every single stream in a row like this, because Monday I want to do something, Wednesday we'll do the news, so Thursday evening we can jump back on this.
Yeah, and if you're fed up with it, or if people are fed up with it in the chat, then we'll just put another one on.
Yeah, it'd be good if they could actually get onto the feminism bit. That's what I was hoping for this time, but they've ended up talking about bloody flags. So,
well, that's because if we go back to the start today, that's why I put that together to say, look, this is my point. I only had 2 points that I was going to make. You could have based an entire hour's conversation just around those 2 points, and yet they can't even discuss 1 point in any detail because they're too busy arguing about things unrelated to this. I think because probably they don't understand enough about what feminism actually is, so they're not prepared to engage with it.
yeah.
And Andrew probably, I'm guessing he probably didn't prepare for this, because he probably, I would assume, he does a lot of these debates, he travels a lot, probably doesn't have a lot of time. He knows his experience, he knows how much time he's got to draw things out, to deflect, to turn the conversation around to what he wants to argue about. And I don't blame him for doing that at all, that's fine. What she should be coming in with is a much stronger argument and a way to defuse Andrew. She, for example, if she were a bit more assertive, she could have several times said, no, I don't want to discuss that. We're discussing feminism. And that would have helped.
Still 2 hours, 16 minutes left. So, yeah, I want to hopefully it be the feminist. So we'll do it Thursday, ladies and gents, at 7 p.m. Do a part 3. And then we can all actually, once we do what we've done Thursday, we say, right, do you want a part 4 if there is one, or should we get a new video and we'll look at that? And then I'll try and find a different debate or some other thing that was discussed, and then we'll talk about that. So, yeah, no, Phil, you're mate, 3 weeks.
I mean, I enjoy doing it myself because it's my bread and butter to analyse language. But I like doing it in a way where you can take the piss. And you can also, somebody in the chat might learn something from it. And if one person learns one thing from it, or if it made somebody laugh or whatever, then that means job's been done, and I'm glad about that.
Yeah, I think it's been a good one. So there we go, ladies and gents. We shall wrap it up, as we say. I didn't realise it like nearly 3 hours. That's ridiculous.
I know.
But,
I didn't realise.
I'll keep it where it is. I know it's blown by. I enjoy this sort of thing, and because it's more about what they're saying, that's new to me. I used to watch videos, and it's always about like their face or their hands. I can't see their feet or the legs, so I can't see them twitching or jumping up and down. But I'm always about like the body language, and I've spent so long doing it. It's nice to watch this, and I've not really taken any notice of any facial expressions. I'm actually listening, so I enjoy it. It's been good.
Well, the things that you just referred to then that you were looking for, the correct term for those in linguistics is paralinguistics. So it's, by that I mean it's not the words that are being used, it's actions associated with the words, like hand movements, like tone of voice. These are all called paralinguistics. And if those were the things that you were focusing on before, that shows that made an emotional resonance with you. But it also shows as well that you weren't listening to the debate. You were listening to the techniques that were being used. And that you would be more likely to be persuaded by somebody whose paralinguistic features were more effective than maybe somebody who was, really boring, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. And I'm glad that you've just said that you've done a critical reflection. And that's what we all should be doing all the time. We don't know everything. We're all learning it all the time. And we should constantly revise the way that we think in light of new information.
Definitely. Well, there we go. Well, enjoy your Sundays, ladies and gents. Our missus told me then when she made our brew, we actually had the 50 pieces of decking arrive on a Sunday. They said for us, they said the decking Sunday, and then the wood for the frame was on the Monday. And I'm like, they must have got that wrong. But no, it's today.
What's the betting that for the next 2 days, every night Wiz is going to be staying up late, praying that it's going to rain so he doesn't have to put that decking down? Yeah.
The decking is done, actually. The furniture arrived, so the wifey put that on there. So it's all wifey's idea. I mean, I'll just go with the flow. But it's all done. She has taken photos, so I'll get one next time so you can see the before and after.
Great.
And then this next bit of decking is even bigger. It comes out further and wider. Ooh!
And also, before I forget, the other thing I wanted to say about that I like this format is I like the fact that we can get the chat to be involved as well. We can look at their comments, they can ask questions, they can disagree with us. I think that's really, really good. And it also gives us, things to think about as well. And it's great to have that interaction and that people are getting involved in that way. And I also think it's great that, we're talking about a debate, but you never know where the conversation is going to go, and it can go in all different directions. And that's because any conversation can be, such a broad tapestry of subjects. That's what makes them interesting.
Definitely. So tomorrow, 1 o'clock, we'll talk about the local elections and what happened and whatever's coming in the future. but
Yeah.
it's up for 1 o'clock. It might change, so keep an eye on the time, because I believe possibly I could have a guest coming round to say happy birthday for Tuesday, because it's my 50th, isn't it? So
Yeah.
depending on when they turn up, it
And
depends
I
when I
would
can go.
say, to save me typing it out tomorrow, I'll say my election experience very, very briefly, which is that I did vote reform for the first and only time that's ever going to happen. I did it because we've got the Greens in charge here, and obviously I don't like them. But despite the fact Suffolk County Council is now fully staffed with reform candidates mostly, my ward chose to vote Green because of all the do-gooder lefty middle-class people here. So it's another few years of them, unfortunately. And just to give an example of what it's like living under a Green council, we don't necessarily have all of the Islamic shit. We don't have any of that. It's all old-fashioned, old-school Greens. We've now got 6 bins. We got given an extra 3 bins this week. So we have, we've got a black bin, a blue bin, a green bin, a grey bin, a food bin. Fuck off. I'm not doing their fucking job for them. I'd rather that money was invested in filling in potholes.
As long as you ain't got a Bin Laden.
Yes. But I will never vote reform again. Never. It's the only time this has ever happened. As soon as I put that piece of paper into the box, I regretted it. I wish I hadn't done it. I should have stuck with what I was going to do and vote Tory. And the only reason I didn't do it was because I know the woman who is standing, and I don't like her husband. So I just thought, I'm not voting for her, which is stupid. I shouldn't have done that, really. I regret it.
Oh, well. Oops.
So that's what my experience was. And as far as I'm concerned, I would imagine it's probably just nothing's going to change around here. As much as I hate the Greens, I live in an area where there isn't any graffiti. The bins do get collected every single week. The streets are clean. They put on events for the town. I can't really complain with what they've done. So I just hate their ideology.
Yeah, fair point. I'm Lib Dems here.
They were second.
Yeah, they kicked butt, didn't they? I was quite surprised. So, but yeah, Lib Dems it is. But I mean, I can't say I've noticed anything. So it's just
One
be more.
thing I noticed was, and I noticed this when I looked at Suffolk, looking at all the voting patterns, where you have large towns and cities, you see a massive difference, because it's all the rural areas, apart from mine, voted reform. But in somewhere like Ipswich, which is a big town, they all voted Labour and Green, or Lib Dem, but mostly Labour. And I think you'll find, if you look at a lot of the big cities across the country, you'll find a very similar pattern as well. So now we've got a huge difference between the urban and the rural areas.
Well, there you go then. Well, we shall see. Well, and don't forget, ladies and gents, we'll be talking about this tomorrow. So get up to speed where you are with the local elections, who you got. I'll have all the links to bring it all up so we can see who's what, where, why, and the plus 1,400 and the minus 1,400 of Labour.
I shouldn't forget to say as well, I have uploaded the first part of my Rendlesham file to Substack. That's there today. And this time next week, I will actually be in the forests, having a good look around and seeing around the Bentwaters base. So I'm looking forward to that one. So we might have to change the next week.
Get some footage, mate, and then you should be able to bring it up on here or something.
Yeah, I will if I take my camera with me. But
just
yeah,
don't get abducted by aliens.
No, I won't. I've been doing lots of work on it. I think that there is a book in there, but whether or not I've got enough material to put it into one at the moment, I couldn't say. But I'm working on another 2 parts to what I've uploaded at the moment that could become a book eventually.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be good.
Keeps me out of trouble.
That's it, mate. Yeah, all good for the mind, isn't it? Creative. So.
And I'd also like to say thanks for this afternoon. It's been a pleasure, as always. And thanks to all the people in the chat for their encouraging comments, their silly comments, their snotty comments, and all of their comments. I appreciate them very much, except for Blessed down below, who's a cunt.
Yep. It's told. That's about it, isn't it, really? So it's all good. And thanks to Robert for another $2 saying keep it real. Happy days. But yeah. Okay, ladies and gents. So tomorrow 1 o'clock, but keep an eye on the times. It might change because I might have a guest round with my birthday. You know how it is. But yes, but I am definitely live tomorrow. So at some point. So it's all good. Hopefully Jake could be here in the chat, I mean, or whatever, or still recuperate.
Tomorrow I'll be around. Definitely be around tomorrow. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Good to see you. Thanks, Wiz.
That's all right, mate. Not a problemo. It's been very informative, very, what should we say? Educational. That's the word. Happy days. But there we go, ladies and gents. Thanks to every single one of you in the chat, and quickly run through. Because I don't get many, I can run through them at the end. Thanks to Mindblur 420 for a cheeky two bound, and then Mindblur 420 for another cheeky 2 bones, and obviously Robert done a cheeky $2, and then Robert done a cheeky but absolutely awesome. Thank you very much, mate. $168, which Trigger Christian googled, wasn't it? £123 or something. That's ridiculous. I mean, how good is that? How nice. And then we got Olga, who also as an ultimate wizard in the memberships. So thank you very much. So I appreciate all of you. I love you all. I'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, but time might change. I don't know, but I'm definitely live tomorrow, so don't worry. And then we're live Wednesday, and then Thursday night we'll carry on with this. And if there's anything else or other days that need to be thrown in, let me know in the comments. It's as simple as, isn't it? So yes. So yeah, I have nothing else to say, don't I? Do I? Don't I? Do I? Can't speak. But that's not a bad 3-hour stream, ladies and gents. But I'll let you go and enjoy your Sundays now. It's 4 o'clock. Happy days. And if you're watching it on catch up, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. But for now, like I say at the end of every single live stream, that is the wizard's words.